local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 26. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 9 degrees, in Smiths Falls, 10. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Another major protest is planned for the downtown of Ottawa this weekend. Not a convoy of trucks. This time it's motorcycles. Some say up to 1,000 of these machines rumbling through the city, starting on Friday. Police board dealt with this last night. Interim Chief Steve Bell says they're prepared and warned there could be things like transit disruptions through the weekend. Police Board Chair El-Chantiry doesn't think this will be a repeat of the occupation from February.
As you know, we always learn a little bit more from every event, and this time around, I believe our staff, our executive command in the Ottawa Police are very well prepared, I would say.
Now, the full interview with El-Chantiry coming up shortly on The Rob Snow Show. City News Time 9:01. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
For Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls today, cloudy, windy, turning colder. A chance of some showers. A west wind to about 25 kilometers per hour. Higher gusts. The high today, 14 degrees. Tonight, rain and snow showers mixed overnight. The low near 1. For today, the high, 14.
And right now, 9 degrees in Ottawa. In Smiths Falls, it's 10. Cash from Ottawa taxpayers will directly assist the development of the Civic Campus. At least that will be discussed next week at City Hall. With the details, here is City News reporter Chris Curries.
Funding for the construction of the Ottawa Hospital is 75% provincial, 25% hospital. And now the hospital has asked the city to pitch $150 million. That would be paid by taxpayers without the assistance of an increase in property taxes. That's in a report submitted to the Finance and Economic Development Committee next Tuesday, which discusses previous provincial projects that have done similar municipal contributions. The City of Ottawa has also provided breaks to hospitals when they are building in the form of development and permit fees, and the report notes the benefits of a state-of-the-art health and research facility in Ottawa. The decision is up for discussion next week, and it will go to City Council once the new term begins for a decision, and funding would be in place by 2028. Chris Curries, City News.
City News Time 9:02. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has met with the Russian Defense Minister and will also be meeting with the Russian President in Moscow today. Guterres says it is obvious to him there are two very different versions of events depending on who you talk to about Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin addressed his fellow military officials from around the world. That included our Defense Minister Anita Anand at the U.S. Air Force Base in Ramstein, Germany. Austin pledged continued support from the U.S. to Ukraine in its defense against Russia's invasion.
My trip to Kyiv reinforced my admiration for the way that the Ukrainian armed forces are deploying these capabilities. Ukraine clearly believes that it can win, and so does everyone here.
Now, Austin convened a meeting of allies to work out ways to keep military aid to Ukraine going. City News Time 9:03. Air Canada lost $974 million in the first quarter of this year, but that's better than last year. The loss then was $1.3 billion. Revenue, though, more than tripled to $2.57 billion. The CEO says the year began with weakness due to pandemic travel restrictions, but results are clear evidence the recovery is underway. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We have had a 20-degree day now. One of them this year. 20.7 degrees yesterday. First 20-degree day of the year, and the first 20-degree day in Ottawa in more than 6 months. That's a long time to wait for 20 degrees. October 15th of last year. More of that, please. 20 degrees. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. We have a lot to get into between now and noon because there is a lot going on. Coming right up, the very latest on the city's preparations for Rolling Thunder, the biker rally that is supposed to be headed to the city this Friday and then stay here all weekend long. The Ottawa Police Services Board had a meeting yesterday, and during that meeting, there was an update from the interim police chief, Steve Bell. And this is not going to be Freedom Convoy 2.0 if he has anything to say about it. I think it's pretty clear the police want to get out in front of this thing.
The joint position of the Ottawa Police Service and the City of Ottawa is that no motor vehicle protests, rallies, or events will be allowed in the designated downtown areas. This includes areas near and around Parliament Hill and the National War Memorial and applies to all demonstrations, rallies, and events.
All right. So, road closures. And the Ottawa Police are calling in reinforcements, the RCMP, the OPP. So that it doesn't sound like there will be 1,000 motorcycles rumbling through the downtown core or having any kind of ceremony at the National War Memorial. We expect to hear more details about a traffic plan later today. From interim police chief Steve Bell. In advance of that, I did have a chance to speak with the chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board, the city councillor for West Carleton-March Ward, Eli El-Chantiry. Spoke with him this morning at length about what the city and the police have planned for this weekend, and you'll hear that interview coming up in just a few minutes' time. Then, it's the professor's turn. Professor Ian Lee, Associate Professor of Management at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. He's one of our regular contributors and always has a hot take on the hot news stories of the day. And is there anything hotter than Twitter? Okay, that's one of the big news stories of the day. Certainly Elon Musk broke yesterday afternoon. It looks like he's won the battle for Twitter. Pending shareholder approval. It has board approval. Elon Musk to take over Twitter. All of it. $44 billion and then take it private. Meaning there would not be shares trading on the stock market anymore. I mean, Twitter really hasn't been a big winner on the stock market, to tell you the truth, when you compare it to other, say, well-known technology companies or social media companies. Since Twitter shares started trading on the stock market, they're up 24% all time. So you've made a little bit of money, but it's not a great return when you compare it to other, as I said, well-known technology companies, social media companies. Facebook, by comparison, has returned almost 400%. Google more than 4,000%. Shopify, the Ottawa darling, even with this sell-off in the shares this year, is still up more than 1,500% since its shares started trading on the stock markets. Twitter, 24%, really hasn't been a great investment. So why does the richest person in the world want to buy it? What's the business case to buy Twitter? Get into that with the professor. Musk says he's buying Twitter because Twitter is the public square. Twitter is the modern day public square. It's where the important debates happen, and it's vital to a healthy democracy. And he thinks he can fix it by adding things like an edit button, by ending the scourge of the spam accounts and the bot accounts, and by authenticating every account. All sounds good, but we'll discuss it with the professor. And on the local front, there's this story this morning. an issue that's coming up at next week's Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting at Ottawa City Hall, the FedCo committee. The idea, local property taxpayers will be asked to pay some sort of levy to help fund part of the construction of the new civic campus of the Ottawa Hospital. As the news report this morning notes from Postmedia's John Willing, it's not unprecedented, but I'm sure property taxpayers in Ottawa will have questions about it, since building hospitals, funding health care is supposed to be the domain of the provincial government. So we'll get into that with Professor Ian Lee at 9:30 this morning. Also coming up today, my friend on the right side of things, Michael Taube, syndicated columnist, former speechwriter for Stephen Harper. We're going to talk about the Conservative leadership race and the front runner in the Conservative leadership race, Pierre Poilievre. He's the guy everyone's writing about in the political news media. And recently, when some commentators in the political news media write about Pierre Poilievre, they compare him to Donald Trump. So we'll ask Michael, how fair is that comparison? Now, Pierre Poilievre doesn't say, lock her up, like Donald Trump would say about Hillary Clinton. And the crowds at the Poilievre rallies, they don't chant, lock her up, like the crowd at the Trump rallies. But the crowd at the Poilievre rallies, they do have a chant. And they chant it loudly and proudly. And it's the biggest chant of the night, apparently. And we've played it on the radio here when the crowd chants, defund the CBC, defund the CBC. So does that make him like Trump? Does that mean he's like Trump? They say he's peddling simple solutions for complex problems. Oh, like the budget will balance itself? Is that what you mean? Poilievre does go after the Bank of Canada aggressively. I get that. I get that it makes people uncomfortable. I prefer monetary policy to be the responsibility of the governor of the Bank of Canada and not some politician in Ottawa. But hey, that's just me. But I really don't think this governor of the Bank of Canada has a great track record on fighting inflation. Tiff Macklem insisted for a long time that inflation was transitory and nothing to worry about, under control. And now, now we need oversized interest rate hikes to tame inflation. And it could take until the year 2024 to bring it back into the bank's desired range, 2 to 3%. Is Poilievre alone in pointing this out? No. Economists from all the big chartered banks have been saying this for a long time, that the central bank is behind the curve. In other words, when it comes to fighting inflation, the central bank waited too long. It kept interest rates too low for too long. And that is a fair criticism. And if Poilievre is making it, he is certainly not alone. But we'll get into that. And Michael also tweets a lot about a lot of different subjects, everything from politics to sports to professional wrestling. So I know he'll have a lot to say about Elon Musk taking over Twitter and what's wrong with Twitter and how we can fix Twitter. In provincial affairs, it's platform time ahead of the June 2nd provincial election. The NDP is out with its platform. We'll go through the pitch with the leader of Ontario's New Democrats, Andrea Horwath, and we will do the talkback hour between 10 and 11 o'clock at 750-1310, 750-1310. The talkback hour is your hour, an hour of opinions, an hour of phone calls. Your opinions, your phone calls. I have a few opinions of my own, but I want to know, what do you think of the Ottawa police and this preemptive move on the Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally? Calling in reinforcements, calling for backup from the RCMP and the OPP. Plans for road closures this weekend, a red zone. Kind of like what we saw in the latter days of the Freedom Convoy, because they don't want this Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally to become Freedom Convoy 2.0. And Elon Musk wants to take over Twitter. Some people are dancing for joy. Some people are saying, I am going to delete my Twitter account. Will Twitter be better or worse if Elon Musk owns it? Let's talk about both of those stories today on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's no longer breathing the air. It's a lie that's no longer there. It's a sign hanging by an nail, and I say goodbye to the man on top of the hill. I say hello to an old soul. What is fake and what is real? It's the heart of letting go. It's the sun that rises from the west shore. Say goodbye to the man on top of the hill. I say hello.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310
We
AM.
could get some more details later today from the Ottawa Police Service. Plans to deal with the Rolling Thunder bike rally that is scheduled for our city for Friday and throughout this weekend. We're joined this morning by the chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board, the West Carleton-March Ward City Councillor Eli El-Chantiry. Good morning, Councillor.
Good morning, sir.
Boy, it's nice to hear from you this morning. This is certainly a very hot issue. How would you describe the differences in approach when you think about the days leading up to the truckers' protest, the Freedom Convoy, and now this bike rally, motorcycle rally that is supposed to take place in our city? What are the differences in approach, do you think?
As you know, we always learn a little bit more from every event. And this time around, I believe our staff, our executive command in the Ottawa Police are very well prepared, I would say. Yesterday at the board meeting, they informed the board about the plan. As a government body, our responsibility to make sure we have a plan in place, we have the resources to deliver, and making sure we support our staff, our team, our executive, whatever they need from us to support them to do their job and do it properly and with effectively. So that's basically we received yesterday, and as you remember, we learned also from the other event when we had the car rally where we had about 500 vehicles came through the city from Gatineau and left from the other end to the east of Ottawa. So as we go along, we learn and we're prepared. You're going to hear more and more from the chief. He has promised to keep an update on a regular basis from now till the weekend.
So should we expect more information today then, Councillor?
Absolutely. The chief, I believe, after the board meeting last night, obviously he informed the board about the plan and the resources, the action, everything in place. So from now, like from today on till the weekend, we will be receiving a regular update to the community, to the media, and obviously to the board. So we will be receiving regular updates from Chief Bell.
Okay. Just so the listeners are aware, there's only so much that you can say. You're the chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board, but that's more of an oversight role. You don't direct the police on their operations. That's up to the police to make the day-to-day decisions about the operations of the Ottawa Police Service, and you're there in an oversight capacity. So there's only so much that you can say, because
Absolutely.
There's only so much authority that you have, actually. So, right. So.
But you're right. Our role is governance and oversight, and basically provide resources to the police. So, as a board, our job is making sure we have adequate policing for the city, or proper policing for the city, for the residents, for the visitors.
Yeah.
Also, we can direct the chief, but we want to make sure also the chief has a plan in place. And we need to, we need to not necessarily find out how many officers you have on a rooftop or in every location, but we need to make sure we have the plan in place, we have the resources, we have the direction, we have it mapped out how we are going to do this. We want to make sure we have a good open dialogue with our partner. Our partner, we can't just say to the OPP or QPP or the RC or any other agency, just give us resources. No, we have a partnership. They sit on a table with the chief and his staff, and they share responsibility. They share the plan with our people, and we work together. And this is what the partnership is all about. And we want to make sure all those in place ahead of the weekend.
Okay. As a resident of the city of Ottawa and as an elected representative of the city council, what are you worried about?
As a resident, especially the resident in the core, I have to say, they're tired. They've been through a lot during the winter. They had 3 sleepless weeks actually, with noise and pollution and all the above, and they're still really not fully recovered from it. And then you had the car rally, and now you have the rolling tender, and people are tired, Rob, especially in the downtown area. The businesses are, trying very hard to keep their head above water, try to recover, from the 3-week shutdown, plus the 2 years of pandemic. So to speak as a resident or as a taxpayer, okay, some people have issue with the federal government, that's fine. In the next election, vote them out. This is a democratic country. You have the right to protest, but you don't have the right to intimidate people. You have no right to shut their business down. You have no right to yell at them just because they're wearing masks and you're not. So there's a lot of things really we have to, as a citizen of the city or of this country, we have to stand up. Okay, maybe not everybody happy with the current government, that's fine. Next time when you have election, just go fill up your boots, work hard, just out them from office. But the city need to go back to what once normal. If that's, I'm hoping I'm not asking too much.
Right.
Rideau Center shutting down for 3 weeks after been, struggling during the pandemic. That alone, how many businesses, how many family, how many single mom work in those places? That's what my heart goes to those people. And plus, the cost. I know some people say, oh, well, you're going to get recovered from the Fed or from the province. It doesn't matter. It's still one taxpayer in this country. It doesn't matter who paid the bill. You are paying the bill. I'm paying the bill.
Okay.
That's what the message should be. Okay, you made your point. Can we move on?
Councillor, what would be your advice for residents who have nothing to do with this, just for the weekend? I'm assuming it would be if you were planning to come downtown, make other plans. Fair enough.
Well, again, I don't want to discourage people from going downtown, from enjoying this, our Byward Market or the Rideau Center or the Parliament Hill. But we just want to make sure, people make a plan. There's the red zone. It's going to be very restricted to vehicles. So you have to make a plan. You're going to be walking in some places. Please try to be safe. Follow the rules and the law, because really we want to help the police. We don't want to create more work or additional work than what they already have in place. So if you are planning on coming, please plan ahead. Make sure where you're going, you're going to be able to find a parking spot. If you're going to somewhere, you might have to park at the city hall, or maybe you have to park somewhere else and take a public transit to those locations. Honestly, I don't feel right telling people don't come on a weekend and enjoy the downtown or the Byward Market. This is your right as well. Why would somebody deny you that right to go and enjoy your tour? But at the same time, I want people to be safe and plan ahead of time, so you don't get caught in the middle of something. But it's going to be update. It's going to be area where you're going to see on any map where you can park, where you can go and safely and
okay.
enjoy your weekend.
All right. So beyond this weekend, there's lots of debate about Wellington Street. It hasn't really reopened since the truckers left, and there's some talk about what should happen to that longer term. What's your thinking on it?
Well, Rob, I'm sure we had that debate with you before. For many years,
yep.
Wellington Street has been in discussion. Some folks think it should be pedestrian, cycle, public transit only. Some people want to keep it open for traffic. It's a debate we had for many years, and it doesn't necessarily mean one group is right, one group is wrong. But we need to have a bigger discussion, bigger plan with our partner in the federal government and with the Gatineau, the city of Gatineau and the province of Quebec. How can we achieve safety for everyone and maintain traffic flow, whether public transit or pedestrian, or that's something for many years we discussed. We never come to really solve. But now, since the convoy has been blocked, and I believe it's going to stay blocked right now until all level of government come up with some concrete plan, public consultation. How do you want to move forward in the future with that section? Okay. And I'm looking for that debate because we had that request came way before, probably in the last 10 years. Many times we talk about this.
Okay. Nice to hear from you this morning, Councillor. All the best. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
One for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 26. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 10 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 11. Here's what's making news this hour. The head of the police board in Ottawa says every situation makes you better prepared for future events. Eli El-Chantiry says he feels that's the case today at the Ottawa Police, with a coming wave of motorcycles descending on the city for a weekend downtown protest. $150 million of city cash is the ask to contribute to the civic hospital construction. Even though it's a provincial and hospital responsibility, Finance and Economic Development Committee will discuss the request next week. If it is something the city will consider, that decision won't be made until the new council is elected. That vote is in October. American Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has told Canadian Defense Minister Anita Anand that officials from about 40 other countries told the same thing. Washington will keep moving heaven and earth to get Ukraine the weapons it needs to fight Russia. Earlier, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned weapons supplied by Western countries are going to be a legitimate target and accused NATO of pouring oil on a fire with its support for Ukraine. City News Time, 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
He's back with us. Professor Ian Lee, Associate Professor of Management at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Welcome back, Professor. Very nice to hear from you this morning.
My pleasure, Rob.
Yeah, sounding great. I hope you're still enjoying your vacation.
The weather is just unbelievable.
Good.
It's paradise. It's paradise. No clouds, no snow, no ice. Just sunshine.
Well, it was 20 degrees here yesterday, Professor.
I know. I look at the weather, and it's 85 here, by the way.
85.
So that's about what, 28? 28.
All right. Yeah. I'll take your word for it. Okay. I moved on to metric. I was raised on metric. So.
I'm bilingual.
You're bilingual. Okay.
I can do Fahrenheit and Celsius.
Okay. Good for you. All right. Elon Musk is buying Twitter. He plans to take the company private from a business strategy point of view. That's what you're an expert in, right? Yeah. Strategy. Yeah. What do you think of this move?
It's going to be very difficult, and I was fascinated by it because of the strategy angle, and I'm not getting into, whether rich billionaires should own newspapers, and I've read some articles on that already. That argument, that whole issue, I thought was finished 100 years ago when the famous William Randolph Hearst ended up buying all kinds of newspapers across the United States, and that famous movie Citizen Kane was based on him. Throughout the years, other billionaires and multimillionaires have owned media, the family that owned the Washington Post, and Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post, and Robert Murdoch bought New York Post. That's the nature of this business, is it needs deep pockets. It's like NFL sports. It's like NHL hockey. These big organizations that are very expensive to run and capital intensive, they need money. And, you've either got two choices. You either say, well, we want the government like Russia and Putin or Xi in China, and we all think, or most of us think, that's a very, very bad idea. Or you say, well, then we're going to have some wealthy people in sport, from business, who are going to step up to the plate and buy a hockey team, a soccer team, a football team, a newspaper that's losing money, or in this instance, Twitter, that was having great difficulties. But the larger point, Rob, I want to make very quickly is I think he's going to have there's a real contradiction in this strategy. On the one hand, the investor, that's Elon Musk, richest man in the world, financed about half of the $44 billion U.S. with debt, and debt has to be repaid. It's not that he couldn't have paid cash, he just chose not to, and he's brought some investors in. Okay, fair enough, nothing wrong with that. And they financed it about half with debt. Debt has to be repaid. How's it going to be repaid? Well, with the advertising revenue, it's kind of obvious. Twitter gets 90% of its revenues from advertising. Okay, I've just recited the facts. Well, the advertising, there's a big group of advertisers in the States. They put out a statement yesterday saying, we want increased content moderation standards. Elon Musk, the new owner, is saying, I want decreased content standards. He said, I'm a libertarian free speech guy. Yeah. I'm not attacking or criticizing or condemning him. People have their right in this country. You can have, or in the States, you can have whatever views you want. And if he believes in radical libertarianism, it's perfectly legal.
Well, that's he doesn't think now that you can believe whatever you want, that it's become taboo to believe certain things, and that's why he wants to
reduce the content rules.
Content controls, I guess, if you will.
Content controls. Yeah. And the problem is, and I'm not a big fan of content controls either, by the way, but now you come up, all of us come up against this very messy problem, and I don't think there's an easy solution, by the way. I think the government on its digital broadcast bills that Andrew Coyne so brilliantly dissected last week reveal how incredibly difficult it is and how problematic it is. Yeah. Are you going to deny politicians on there because you don't like their views and you deem them as offensive and so forth? So what I'm saying is, I think he's getting, this isn't a straightforward acquisition. This is, he even himself has said, Twitter is the digital town square. It's the new town square. Yeah. We used to have it in historical times. It was in every little community, I guess near the post office or something, or the downtown. And so my point where I'm going with this is it's going to be very, very, very difficult to square the circle. You've got $44 billion in this investment. The advertisers want more standards for an obvious reason. They don't want their brands that are advertised there associated with toxic or disgusting or offensive speech or content. comments because it's their money. They can place their advertising dollars wherever they want. Remember, it's a free country in both countries. Yep. At the same time, Elon Musk, because of his personal philosophical views, wants less content standards. Now, you can't have simultaneously less content standards and increased content standards at the same time. You just can't square that circle. And so it's going to be very interesting to see which gives way. If he wants to repay that debt, he needs more advertising money. And the advertisers have been very, very clear. We want tougher, more rigorous standards to get rid of, the trash and the toxic speech and that sort of thing. Okay. So if he wants to make his money back and he wants the debt to be repaid, I think he's going to have to compromise on his own views. That's what I'm really concluding from this.
He would have to compromise on his own views.
Yes, and say, I'm going to have to accept increased content standards because the advertisers are demanding it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't get to be the richest person in the world by being a dummy, right?
No.
I mean, he has a rocket ship company, an electric car company. Fabulous track record of success here. And I just... It must be I don't know if maybe he's not even doing it for business purposes. He says he wants he wants to do it because he believes that it's vital to democracy. Maybe profit isn't his motive here.
I agree with you. I don't think he did this to say, some people say he wants to go and make money. Listen, he's the richest person in the world. He doesn't need Twitter. He's got, he's got Tesla. And just like Jeff Bezos did not buy the Washington Post to make money. I mean, it's almost like buying a restaurant, my joke is the fastest way to become poor is to buy a restaurant. Probably the second fastest way to get poor is to go and buy a newspaper because they just hemorrhage cash, so he didn't do it for money. He didn't do it because, I'm going to get rich. First off, he already is unbelievably rich. So, he did it because he has some kind of a philosophical mission. We'll see if they can square the circle. I mean, I do think that there are ways they can do it if they stay away from trying to regulate judgments. If they just stick to, you can't be, basically the prohibitions in the human rights speech codes in Canada and the States. You can't make racist statements, sexist statements, homophobic statements. But when they start trying to regulate the, quote, truthiness, some people get their knickers in a knot because there's people that deny the efficacy of vaccines. Quite frankly, I don't give a flying tinker's damn if people want to go and tell themselves foolishness. There's some people who can deny gravity. My answer is, fall off a chair and see if you fall downward or go up in the sky. I'm being a little bit facetious. Who cares if there's people that deny, Newton's law of gravity or Einstein's theory of relativity? I don't care. As long as they're not, libeling somebody or slandering somebody or racist or homophobic or Islamophobic, all the prohibitions in the Human Rights Code. Yeah, okay. Beyond that, I think they've gone, and where Trudeau and the government are going way overboard, is they're getting deep into regulating essentially judgments and opinions. And I think they should just stay away from that completely.
Okay. Well, a conversation for another day.
Is another person's offensive
a conversation for another day on that one. We'll have lots of time to talk about that one. Yeah. Let's move on to something else here. What is your opinion as someone who pays big-time property taxes here in the city of Ottawa, potentially being asked to pay some kind of levy to help fund construction, up to $150 million worth of construction for the new civic campus of the Ottawa Hospital?
Well, it's wrong. I mean, it is wrong because healthcare, and this isn't my opinion, this is in the Constitution Act of Canada. Healthcare is an exclusive provincial responsibility. May I remind everybody, people may not know this, municipalities don't exist in Canada's Constitution because they are considered to be creatures of the province. Mm-hmm. The province has the full constitutional authority. They could literally wind down and eliminate every municipality in the province. They have full legal. It'd be foolish because who wants to run Toronto from the provincial government of Ontario, or even worse, Ottawa, the city of Ottawa. But my point is they have that authority. It is not the responsibility of the homeowners or the municipality to start co-funding hospitals. That is the domain, the exclusive domain of the provincial government, and in this instance, Pacific Hospital,
but it seems,
is to be funded by the government of Ontario.
When the provincial government comes to Ottawa and says, we're going to build you a brand new $2 billion hospital, we get the building. But that's pretty much it. And then the foundation has to come in and, equip the building.
But that's still healthcare.
And now, well, I'm saying maybe it's time to revisit what is the provincial commitment actually to a new hospital? Is it just the building? And I guess funding for the payroll, I guess. But, you have to put the beds in and the equipment and everything else all by yourself. And what about the municipality's role here?
But Rob, what this is really pointing to, and I don't even think anyone sort of connected these dots, it really is pointing to the demand for reform to the whole healthcare system in Canada, the Charest. And I'm not trying to change the subject to the Charest and the leadership, but he said something that I've been advocating for literally 10 years, and that is that we overwhelmingly, in public opinion polls, all of us Canadians, and I mean, I looked at polls going back 20, 30 years, and we support the single-payer model by 85, 90, 95% of Canadians. That means you don't get a bill when you go to the hospital or to the doctor. It goes straight to OHIP. They're the banker. Okay, that's we should be going more and more to, we should take just about everything out of the hospitals except the really big ticket stuff, trauma, emergency departments, cancer.
Yeah, Jean Charest's out pitching that right now. Jean Charest's out pitching that right now.
And in other words, my arthritis clinic that I attend to, and they're excellent doctors. What on earth is that doing in the middle of a hospital? The eye clinic where they have these very high-tech machines with the very advanced eye doctors. What on earth is that? Why isn't that in a clinic on Maryville Road or on St. Joseph Boulevard? I mean, there's no need because hospitals are really, really expensive. They're the most expensive way you can deliver health care.
Yes.
We should be stripping out probably 80% of what's in a hospital and putting them into clinics, but paid for by OHIP, so it's not privatization. The unions will falsely claim it's privatization. It's not. It's just doctors delivering it in a different address, and the bill goes to OHIP, just like all the bills from the hospital for doing my knee went to OHIP or a hip replacement or whatever. Every one of those procedures in the hospital are reimbursed by OHIP to the hospital. You can reimburse a clinic just as easily as you can reimburse a hospital, and they're much more efficient and they're far less costly. And then you don't have these problems because the financing is on the person who set up the clinic.
But you're saying the city taxpayer should not have to put up any money here.
Not at all. No.
Whether it's a one-time special levy or whatever it is, or a development charge or whatever it is.
We're not just property taxpayers, and for those who rent say, well, I don't pay property taxes. Of course you do. You're just paying, you don't know it. You're paying it to the landlord, and the landlord pays property taxes. Okay, so anybody who's listening who rents and says, I don't pay property taxes, yes, you do. It's disguised in your rent payment. But we also pay taxes as workers, as employees, and that's what the provincial government waxes big time with provincial income taxes. It's the provincial income taxes that should be used to pay for hospitals.
And a health tax.
All the stuff
and in Ontario, a health tax as well, a special health tax, right? So, okay. All right. Okay. So not a fan of that. When we come back, we'll talk about new housing development standards in the city of Ottawa. City of Ottawa going above and beyond in the fight against climate change, according to Professor Lee. When we come back, Rob Snow Show, City News.
So the Women's Business Network is a volunteer-run association that achieves its strategy and vision by supporting women to achieve their success on their own terms by providing development opportunities, valuable connections within the organization itself, and it facilitates member access to growth within their business and careers.
I mentioned the 2-year absence of the Businesswoman of the Year awards. Obviously difficult, Mira, but certainly an opportunity to work on some new things. Tell us what you've got planned, what you worked on.
Yeah, we really missed putting on the BYAs for the last 2 years because of COVID. It also was unfortunate that we couldn't celebrate the women that were having such a huge impact on our community in Ottawa. So we're really glad that they're back now. As you know, that they've been around since 1983. They are a purpose to celebrate the achievements, the professional expertise, and the leadership of all of the outstanding women we have in the National Capital Region. And for the first time this year in 2022, we've introduced 2 new categories, one being the Lifetime Achievement Award and the other one being the Community Champion Award.
Okay, yeah, and let's break it down even further because, as I mentioned, there's different categories and then, of course, different awards within categories. Tell us about some of the returning categories and some of the other awards as well.
So the 2 returning categories that we're bringing back are actually the entrepreneur and the enterprise leaders. Those are very popular in our community. They draw a significant amount of nominations, and they do get a lot of attention because it's very common that we take the opportunity that we want to celebrate the entrepreneurs in our community, especially after the 2 years of being through what they've been through, right? So we're looking for nominees of owners who have significant impact on their businesses, that have seen strong growth in the last little while. And one of the things that we did do to revamp this award was we dissected it into 3 subcategories based on the term that the individuals have been in business for. So you've got from startups that have been around for 1 to 3 years, then we've got the emerging entrepreneurs 3 to 7, and the established entrepreneurs for 7 years and above. So there's really going to be 3 awards or 3 winners within the entrepreneur category itself. And then we've got the Enterprise Leader Award that's also come back. And this is an opportunity for organizations to nominate individuals within their business that display exceptional leadership attributes, positively impact the environment.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Professor Ian Lee is back with us now. So the city has declared a homeless emergency. It's declared a climate emergency as well. And to address the climate emergency, it recently passed new and more stringent building codes above and beyond the current regulations for more climate resilient development. And it will add thousands and thousands of dollars to the cost of building a home, which will then, of course, be passed on to the eventual buyer of the home. What do you think about that right now?
You know, when I read the story and I saw some of the councillors said, well, we have the real big picture. You know, all these critics don't have the big picture.
Yeah.
And I just laughed out loud that they're I'll be very blunt, I'm sorry, but they're incredible ignorance. And I'm talking factual ignorance.
Okay.
I'm not talking about being rude ignorant. Ignorance has 2 different meanings, really.
Yep.
You know, being rude or just not knowing what you're talking about.
Okay.
So let's start with fundamental empirical facts. Top 10 GHG emitting countries on planet Earth. That's the big picture. China, number 1. U.S. number 2. It's literally just a hair over 1/2 of China. In other words, China is by far and away. I'm not blaming China. I'm not attacking China. I'm just putting facts on the table. Number 3 is India. Number 4 is Russia. This is CO2 emissions annually by country. Number 5, Japan. Number 6, Germany. Number 7, Iran. 8, South Korea. 9, Saudi Arabia. 10, Indonesia. As I've said over and over, if Canada tragically was hit by multiple asteroids across the country and every last living, breathing Canadian was killed, the global warming would barely move. It would be Canada's, the missing 1.5% of global warming is a statistical
like we had never existed at all, right? Like we had never existed at all. Yeah.
And so what they're trying to say is that this is going to make an appreciable significance to global warming. They do not know what they're talking about.
Right.
What they're saying is not factually correct.
What they're saying is we have to do our part.
Well, it's not. What they're doing is making housing even more and more unaffordable.
Right.
I keep arguing that this is unwitting, not deliberate, but unwitting discrimination against young people and immigrants. And the fact that they're not intending to do it doesn't matter. It doesn't require intent. And they're harming huge numbers of people and large numbers of people in the Ottawa area and across municipalities across Canada and other municipalities. And they're not having any impact. China just announced a huge increase in coal emissions. They're opening up new coal plants.
Yeah.
And we know that coal is the dirtiest of the dirtiest of the dirty. Yeah. It's about 45%, by the way, of global emissions. You want to get serious, councillors, about global emissions? Go after coal no matter where it is burned, whether it's in the U.S. Yes, they burn a lot of coal in the U.S. South Korea, one of our allies, but it's also China is the number one user of
Japan,
coal
I believe,
in the world.
as well. Japan, I believe, burns a lot.
And Japan is too.
Yeah.
Japan is number 5. Yeah. So my point is that we want to get serious, and they're not. This is virtue signaling, okay? Right. This is not serious. No, they don't get the big picture whatsoever. If they really were serious, and they're not, they would say, we must mobilize campaigns against the top coal-burning countries in the world because they are the number one source of the problem. I'm not just blaming China. Yeah. I'm blaming those top 10 countries, by the way, with the exception of Saudi Arabia, are all huge coal-burning countries. South Korea uses huge amounts of coal. So does Japan. So does Germany, that famous green country that we all look up to. Environmentalists love to talk about progressive Germany. They're burning coal like there's no tomorrow. We're down to, I think it's 3% in Canada of our energy is sourced from coal, and it's diminishing by the year. And yet progressives look to Germany and say, oh, aren't they wonderful and progressive on the environment? They're burning coal like crazy. And they're number 6 in the world on the list.
Okay.
We're not even on the top 10.
Right. Okay. All right. The 5-year fixed rate mortgage interest rate now is 4.14%. And that's before the next rate hike from the Bank of Canada, which has been pretty much telegraphed from the governor now. Another 50 basis point interest rate hike is on the way.
Yes.
Are you worried at all about the housing market rolling over?
No, I'm not. No. I've talked privately to people about this over the last several years, and I've got the data, and I'll explain my logic very quickly.
All right, 2 minutes.
First off, 70% of big picture, 70% of Canadians are homeowners. Yeah. So 7 out of 10 adult Canadians own their home, whether it's a high-rise, a low-rise, a townhouse, it doesn't matter. They own their home. Yeah. 7 out of 10. 3 out of 10 don't. Okay, let's now focus on those 7 out of 10. Okay, 45% of all Canadians that do own their homes are mortgage-free, debt-free.
Wow.
Is that my opinion? No, that's actually from Stats Canada and Canada Mortgage and Housing, the joint data program that they use to collect housing stats.
Right.
Now, let's keep going. So almost half of all Canadians that are homeowners don't even owe a mortgage, and I don't know how you can lose your house because of increased rates if you don't owe any debt on the house.
Yeah, but what if you bought $1 million townhouse in suburban Mississauga somewhere?
Now, let me get to that one, okay? Yeah. If you look at the house, I believe the figure is 30% of Canadians that do have a mortgage have relatively small mortgages, less than half the value of the house.
Okay.
So the property, goes down in value. If it goes down in value, no big deal. I mean, you have tons of equity. And in terms of the rate itself, and I saw this, I witnessed this up close and personal in 1979-80 when rates peaked out, went to 16, 17, 18, 20. And people everywhere were saying, this is it. We're doomed. Everyone's going to lose their house in Canada. Foreclosures are going to go through the roof. People are going to be homeless on the streets. The Mortgage National Delinquency Ratio, which is published, by the way, every month by law. All the banks have to report it, and then it's aggregated. The delinquency ratio in 1980 went from 0.5% all the way up. It skyrocketed to 1%. 99% of people continued to pay their mortgage. How is that possible? There's 2 explanations. Number one, if you find you can't afford that $1 million mortgage because you overextended yourself, you simply put it up for sale. You tell your neighbors, I didn't like this house. I don't like this neighborhood. You don't tell them I can't afford the payment, right? You put your house up for sale and you sell it to someone who's got the cash. Secondly, what about those who don't want to sell their house? And I witnessed this, and I coined the phrase in 79-80, the bank of mom and dad, because I had customers coming into me, and they had lost their jobs. And I said, very respectfully, I said, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate your efforts in this regard, but how on earth are you able to pay the make the payment? You've lost your job. They said, well, mom and dad are helping us out. And then I coined the phrase, the bank of mom and dad. There's 15 trillion of personal wealth in this country, not corporate wealth, not government wealth. That's all of us. That's the bank of mom and dad, and we owe $2 trillion. Everyone gets their knickers and nod. Oh my God, we owe $2 trillion. Wow. We own $15 trillion. Our net worth is over $14 trillion, or over $400,000 per person. These are averages, I realize. Yeah. Some young people say,
you're not worried. You're not worried.
No,
we're
the boomers are worth $1.5 million.
Right. We're in good shape. We're in good shape. Okay, well, that's good news. Good shape. All right, we'll see how it all plays out. Thank you. When are you coming back?
This coming weekend.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again. Calling in once again from Hilton Head, South Carolina, that is Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Coming up next, Talk Back Hour. The bikers not allowed near Parliament Hill or the National War Memorial on their motorcycles, and Elon Musk buying Twitter. We'll talk about both of those stories with your help at 750-1310 during the Talk Back Hour on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Being a crossing guard works great as part of my schedule as a high school student because I still have time to do my tests and assignments while earning a little bit of cash on the side.
Working as a crossing guard fits into my current lifestyle because it gives me a lot of time during the day to pursue hobbies that I'm very interested in.
A friend of mine introduced me to this job. I didn't know it was actually a paid job.
I always start my day. It's a very little, I guess, few months baby, and she always comes with her dad on a pram, and the smile she has, like, oh my God.
Well, I think the OSC is a very good employer. They show quite clearly that they care about you. They're very polite.
They really make you feel like you're part of a family.
It's fun. I really enjoy it.
Gets us out of the house, too.
Yeah.
One for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 10 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As the Rolling Thunder convoy prepares for a protest this weekend in Ottawa's downtown, concerns about how police intend to manage the situation. Police Board Chair Eli El-Chantiry tells City News the board is going to ensure the chief and brass have a plan in place this time around.
We need to not necessarily find out how many officers you have on a rooftop or in every location, but we need to make sure we have the plan in place, we have the resources, we have the direction, we have it mapped out how we are going to do this.
Now, the convoy is expected to arrive on Friday. However, Interim Police Chief Steve Bell says some parts of the downtown will be off limits to protesters, and also says there likely will be disruptions to things like OC Transpo. Now, Mayor Jim Watson was asked about the Rolling Thunder protest again this morning and says he has confidence in the police. He also asked those who are taking part to once again have a look at their motivation.
I hear these groups yelling for freedom. I tell them, turn on your TV and watch what Fight for Freedom is all about in Ukraine. Stop wasting hundreds and thousands of dollars in gasoline with your motorcycles to come to Ottawa to drive around the city. Take that gas money and donate it to the Red Cross.
Now, Watson adds he can't guarantee there won't be some challenges from this protest scheduled this weekend, but urges those taking part follow the law or face the consequences. City News Time 10:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
For Ottawa, the Valley, Smith Falls today, cloudy, windy, turning colder. A chance of some showers. A west wind to about 25 kilometers per hour. Higher gusts. The high today 14 degrees. Tonight, rain and snow showers mixed overnight. The low near 1. For today, the high 14.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, it's 10 degrees. A top Russian official is blaming Ukraine for stalled talks between the two countries, also accusing NATO of pressuring Kyiv not to reach an agreement.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warns Ukraine against provoking World War III and says the threat of a nuclear conflict should not be underestimated. Moscow also claims that Western allies could be provoking a wider conflict by supplying Ukraine with weapons. British Armed Forces Minister James Heappey states that NATO is a defensive, not an offensive alliance, and says,
all of this noise from Moscow about somehow their attack on Ukraine being a response to NATO aggression is just utter nonsense.
I'm Naomi Shannon.
Ontario Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca says a senior strategy from his party is home care first. He says he wants to eliminate for-profit long-term care by 2028 if elected. Del Duca says the pandemic was a wake-up call for the institutionalization of seniors through long-term care. Liberals are pledging a home care guarantee that will ensure 400,000 more seniors have access to home care within the next 4 years and would boost total funding for the system by $2 billion by 2026 through 10% annual increases. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On The Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, The Rob Snow Show continues.
The Rolling Thunder bikers won't be allowed near Parliament Hill or the National War Memorial with their motorcycles. And there will be road closures to deal with that demonstration coming up this weekend. So do you agree or disagree with that decision from the Ottawa Police? We first learned about that yesterday. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I mean, it's all over the news. The Elon Musk news, front page, let's see, of this newspaper, front page of this newspaper. Remember newspapers? Yeah, they have front pages. Elon Musk and Twitter. On the front page of both of them, Elon Musk buying Twitter. Do you think that's going to be good for Twitter or bad for Twitter? Feel free to comment on one of those stories, both of those stories, either or of those stories at 750-1310. 750-1310, 613-750-1310, because it's your hour, folks. This hour only works if you call. We can fill it with guests if you want, but I would like this hour to be your hour for our phone calls. And those are the two big news stories that I want to get into and kick around here during the talkback hour. Okay? It's your choice, and I'm all ears. The plans from the Ottawa Police for the Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally. Those bikers won't be allowed anywhere near Parliament Hill or the National War Memorial on their motorcycles. And Elon Musk wants to take Twitter private, meaning it won't be on the stock market anymore. And it could mean some changes for the popular social media platform or the online sewer pipe of humanity, however you want to look at Twitter. But both are big news stories. This time yesterday, I was asking you what you wanted the police to do, and now we kind of have a better idea of what the police are planning to do in advance of this motorcycle rally coming to Ottawa. We know kind of bits and pieces about what the Ottawa Police Service is planning to do. And I simply want to know if you agree or disagree with what the interim police chief, Steve Bell, told the news media yesterday. So some of what he told us yesterday, he had a message for the Rolling Thunder organizers and other would-be participants, and this was his message.
I want to be clear with both organizers and participants. You will be held accountable for your actions before, during, and after the events. We continue to monitor online and open source commentary relating to all events. Threatening or intimidating behaviors will be addressed with all appropriate enforcement actions. Investigative teams, including our hate crime unit, are in place focused on gathering evidence and laying charges where applicable. The display of symbols of hate like swastikas have and will result in charges. The targeting of any community event will result in a police and enforcement response.
Okay, so a little bit. He also detailed the resources that the Ottawa police will be deploying for the event this weekend.
Controlled intersections, road closures, vehicle towing, and ticketing will be part of the enforcement strategy to support public safety. I've spoken to the OPP commissioner, and we will receive significant additional resources from multiple partner agencies, including the Ontario Provincial Police and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Okay. So that's Chief Bell. Can you call him Chief Bell? Interim Chief Bell. Interim Chief Bell. You know, the police service is worried that this bike rally planned for the weekend, that it's not going to be a one-weekend wonder. I think that's one of the concerns that they have, that it could last an extended period of time, and the police don't entirely buy this idea that the bikers are just going to show up, they're going to have their say, they're going to have a ceremony at the War Memorial, and then and leave the same way they came in. And I guess the concern is there's the possibility that it could become a larger, longer protest. So they want to move preemptively. I mean, this is a city that went through a nearly month-long occupation in the downtown core. And let's face it, the police didn't look very good through much of it. It cost the last police chief his job. The head at the time of the Ottawa Police Services Board, Diane Deans, ousted from that position. You know, it damaged some careers when you think about it. And it damaged the local economy. And, you know, people are trying, a lot of people are still trying to get over it and move on in that part of the city. And the last thing they want is another extended, loud, noisy protest. So the police are, you know, it's obvious they're planning for road closures, traffic detours, and disruptions. Chief Bell said, not going to let this vehicle protest happen again in the streets of downtown Ottawa.
The joint position of the Ottawa Police Service and the City of Ottawa is that no motor vehicle protests, rallies, or events will be allowed in the designated downtown areas. This includes areas near and around Parliament Hill and the National War Memorial, and applies to all demonstrations, rallies, and events.
Okay. So what do you think about that? What do you think about that? Do you agree with that plan, or do you disagree with that plan? I'd like to know your opinion this morning. Is why we do the Talkback Hour. This is the big local news story, and I want to get your opinion on this big local news story. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. To the phones. I have 3 lines available there. The wait won't be too long. It was the wait was longer at the end of the hour. Won't be too long today at the beginning of the hour. Beverly. Good morning, Beverly.
Good morning.
Yeah, hi, Beverly.
I have a comment on the Rolling Thunder.
Yes, go right ahead.
I do think that the police are, I'm glad they stepped up, first of all, to make some changes from the last convoy. Okay. But this one, I do believe that vehicles should still be allowed, at least in a sort of a parade format. So in my opinion, I think the motorcycles should be allowed downtown as a parade, let's say, not to gather, not to stay.
Okay.
for sure we should be allowing some vehicles downtown to parade by. I think that's the whole idea of coming through the Parliament and the War Memorial. I think that's a great idea. But then maybe they should move them out the same day. So if they plan on staying, then they should move them out.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't sound like they're even going to get that opportunity by the sounds of things.
No, and I think that's wrong. You think that's wrong?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
I
fair
think
enough.
We're basing our opinion on one convoy that was terrible, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think we're basing it on one when years and years we've had successful, rallies, protests, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a little overstated at this moment by the police, but I like that they have some contingency plans.
Gotcha. Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've got us off to a good start this morning here. So in a YouTube video that was posted Sunday, the Rolling Thunder organizer, one of them, Neil Sheard, he's been identified as in the news media, tells supporters that he's been in contact with both the city and the police to inform them what route the motorcycle rally was going to take when it was going to come into Ottawa, and then the city wrote back and said, you're not allowed downtown. So this is what he had to say.
We ended up getting an email from the city. We did. We got an email from the city. And they have informed us that no vehicles will be allowed in the downtown area, Parliament Hill, or the Cenotaph. We have been working with the city and the police day one, completely transparent of what we are planning to do with the bikes, with the route, with the monument, everything.
Okay, so then he had this message for Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson.
Now, Mr. Mayor, if you're watching this, thousands of people are coming to the city. There could be over 1,000 bikes coming to your city. We had a route nailed. Vanier, Rideau, Weller down to Laurier. Laurier, up Elgin, up and around, back down to Laurier, out to Nichols, back down to the 417. We will be out of the city.
Okay.
Plain and simple. Now, you've taken that little bit of control, the quasi-control that we could have had, to guide the motorcycles. And now, it's going to be a free-for-all. But if you get back to us, we can work on this. We can get that route, get up on the hill, just do that route, done.
All right. Free-for-all. He says now it's going to be a free-for-all. So let's get your reaction. We'll get some more calls right after this. Talkback Hour, 750-1310. You've heard what the police have said. This is one of the organizers in response saying it's going to be a free-for-all now. I'd like to know what you think about the decision from the Ottawa police. There's going to be a red zone downtown. You're not going to be able to, quite frankly, you're not going to be able to get downtown this weekend by the sounds of it in your vehicle. 750-1310, Rob Snow Show, City News.
The sun is calling, change with one end, I won't win anything if I give everything.
I was so excited when I found out that I was given this grant to be able to make this concert, because I knew it was going to be the first opportunity that I was able to play these songs for others. You know, this album was recorded really, truly in isolation. Like everybody else, we were locked down for a bit. So you're going to see, I think, the joy of playing live, of being together.
For me, as someone who owns a business in Ottawa that's directly working with music, I own a recording studio, it is important because it gives a sense of confidence in terms of having support from a lot of different places. We all know in Canada, there are all kinds of city, provincial, and federal people who provide funding for artists, and just seeing how invested Ottawa is and expanding the reputation of Ottawa as a music and entertainment city, running a business in that city, it makes you just feel better that someone's going to support you, help you, and have your back.
Well, firstly, I'm seeing friends that I haven't seen in 2 years, so that is kind of stabbing me in the heart a little bit, but I'm also just so happy to be able to make art with all of these friends again. And I've been treated like an absolute rock star from the moment I just kind of knocked on the door and said, hey, can I unload my gear? Everybody's so helpful, and you're just used to kind of dragging all your stuff around, and it's such a hard business to be in. So this is a dream come true for any local artist who gets to participate in a series like this.
Oh, I feel like I need to keep pinching myself. It's an amazing experience and opportunity for us, so thank you so much. It's been a long couple months. Our last show was in December. This is the first time we've actually been in the same room together since. So it's really an amazing opportunity for us and the beautiful theater, and to have Rogers here, and thank you, Mike, and so it's a dream come true.
I'm here with one of my best friends, Alex, and we haven't performed in almost 2 years because of COVID. And it feels really good to be back on a big stage like Meridian, and I'm really honored that you guys invited me here today.
Having an organization that lets the artists do their thing with such a range of styles and influence, and to kind of have that ability to meet the public and to meet the people who would listen to them, can't be overstated. So super excited about it. I know a lot of musicians in town and a lot of music lovers in town who are really excited about it too. So I mean, it's an event in which there's talk, there's a lot of buzz around it, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes on for a long time and does a lot of great things for local musicians and connecting them with the listeners that love them.
Time to talk back
on The Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
So all of our callers want to talk about the motorcycle rally, the Rolling Thunder Motorcycle Rally. The motorcycles won't be allowed near Parliament Hill or the National War Memorial on their motorcycles because the police are going to install road closures and control traffic flow. So do you agree or disagree with that move from the Ottawa Police? Calling in now, Afghanistan war veteran, former city councillor Jody Mittick has called in. Jody, good morning.
Morning, Rob. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Jody, how are you these days?
I'm doing great.
That's good.
I'm just listening to your show right now, and I just couldn't help but, I was listening to what Jim said earlier and what the new chief said, and I hadn't heard much from the organizers until you played that clip. I think both sides need to remember the goals here. And also, though, I can't help but notice the provocative language I believe Jim and the chief are using, knowing who many of the participants in the bike ride are, being veterans. I can't help but feel a little bit poked at with some of the language. Personally, and I'm not even part of the event.
Okay.
Yeah, so, if what the organizer said is true, and I don't see why it wouldn't be, like, if they have been working with the city and with the police, then, obviously, Rob, I'm going to say, to then say, well, actually, all you veterans that are coming to Ottawa and looking forward to paying respects and et cetera, which is, to an extent, a lot of what, the feeling is with the veterans.
Right.
Why do something like, at the last minute, restrict access to the one spot that, is very important to these people? And then, what are your goals with that? If you're worried they're going to do a surprise, and
they're worried about Freedom Convoy 2.0. They don't want anything that looks like Freedom Convoy 2.0. So
okay, but yeah. What gives them the right to restrict the access of just the veterans in the group? So what are you're going to stop the guys and check their veteran card and then let them in on Elgin or whatever? Like,
okay.
It seems to me like they've caused a problem, and they've upped the temperature of the situation through this move. And
frankly, we have a clip of the mayor here, Jody, and maybe this is kind of the tone that you're talking about here. We aired this during our 10 o'clock newscast here. Let's go here.
I tell them, turn on your TV and watch what Fight for Freedom is all about in Ukraine. Stop wasting hundreds and thousands of dollars in gasoline with your motorcycles to come to Ottawa to drive around the city. Take that gas money and donate it to the Red Cross. Do something for real freedom fighters.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I love Jim, and I worked with him great when I was on council, and he supported me, but I find a lot of his comments to be way out of line considering who he's addressing.
All right.
It's not a waste of money to do what you're allowed to do, and which is ride your motorcycle or drive your truck or drive your Prius or plug your car in. Like, that all does the same thing. It allows you to travel and go somewhere and let your opinion be heard. People aren't coming here because there's no reason, and the people of Ottawa, I understand, when I was on Sam's show, people got upset with me because they thought I supported what was happening. And I'm like, well, no, I've been in the middle of this stuff, and I understand what emotion really looks like when people go, when that switch flips. And it takes a mayor of a 1 million person city to say something like that for people who truly believe in this country and what the rallies stand for, which regardless of what side of the fence you're on, it's not far right to decide to get on a motorcycle and ride across the country because, first of all, it's fun, and second of all, you're allowed to. And then if they're coming here from across the country and some of them from other countries, it's probably because they feel like they have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but anyway, like, my point, Rob, is that, in good faith, you can deal with people. And if you're truly worried about, the Convoy 2.0, that is one of those tactical gambits that you have to take sometimes,
Gotcha.
Anyway,
thanks, Jody. Thanks for calling in and sharing your perspective. I'm glad to hear you're well these days. Thanks, man. Yeah, bye.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, bye. Former city council, unsolicited, called in unsolicited. Irving in Orleans. Good morning, Irving.
Morning.
Yeah, hi, Irving. So the Ottawa police are going to close down streets, and they're not going to let the Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally near Parliament Hill or the War Memorial. What do you think about that?
November the 11th, there's hundreds of thousands of people downtown.
Yeah.
They don't ride the motorcycles downtown. They just walk or take the buses.
Yep.
So what the hell's the difference?
Okay. So you have no problem with the police, closing streets down and blocking traffic and those sorts of things. They say they're going to create a red zone, like a no-go zone, Irving. No problem with it? No problem with it?
The only thing is that some people downtown will have a motorcycle and they're driving to work and coming back again. So how are you going to distinguish them?
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Irving. Thank you for your call, sir. Appreciate it. Let's take another one here. In Kemptville. Russ, good morning. You're on City News. Russ.
Morning, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, sir.
Good.
What do you think about the police? They're moving preemptively here to block the Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally from going to the Hill and the War Memorial.
Well, if you're in a negotiation with people, anyone, for anything, really, and you'd like the negotiation to go well, do you immediately pull a handgun out and put it on the table and say, this is how we're going to make sure this goes well? And what does your counterpart think? I know that's an extreme example, but
okay.
That's my point. You're already going at it adversarially and confrontationally.
Okay. So you think it's too heavy-handed, is that what you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
First of all, a semi and a motorcycle are two very different things. You can live in a semi. You can't live on the back.
Yeah, but there's a reason it's called Rolling Thunder. Like 1,000 of those motorcycles is going to be really loud, right,
Sure,
Russ? It's going to be really loud, right?
Yes, I don't live in a college ward of any city because it's loud and there's lots of parties. There's personal accountability, too. If you want to live in a sleepy little area, there's small towns, there's suburbs, there's places for that.
So if you live downtown, you should have to put up with days-long protests, months-long protests, Russ?
You know what? If our political leaders would listen and talk to people who are frustrated, and Jim Watson disgusted me with what he said. There's obviously a large portion of people, me being one of them, that feels that we are in danger of losing our democratic rights and values in this country because it's like a frog in a pot of water. It starts off cold, and then you slowly warm it up until it boils, and it has no idea that it's boiling, right? That's what happens.
Okay.
How about we listen to our people, the people that they are supposed to represent.
Okay. All right. Gotcha, Russ. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We're halfway there. We'll pick it up after the news. Lots of room for phone calls after the news, ladies and gentlemen. 750-750-1310, 750-1310. Talkback hour taking off here on the Rob Snow Show and City News.
One for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 26. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 12 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Police force seems to be prepared for the Rolling Thunder protest that is scheduled for the city this weekend. Motorcyclists planning a demonstration. Mayor Jim Watson said this morning he's had discussions with police brass. He is confident in the approach they are taking. Watson also urging those taking part to observe and obey the laws or be ticketed and towed away. There are some supply chain issues affecting Phase 2 of LRT. Although no date was given, it would appear the launch for that will have to be adjusted again. But the West End Councillor and Chair of the Transit Commission, Alan Hubley, says he's not overly worried at this point. NATO allies are scrambling to get artillery and other heavy weaponry to the eastern Ukraine in time to make a difference. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin convened a meeting with Defense Minister Anita Anand and officials from about 40 countries today at a U.S. air base in Germany. The goal, get countries to pledge more weapons for Ukraine. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Day number 2, talking about the Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally, and we learned yesterday from the interim Ottawa Police Chief, Steve Bell, that the decision has been made that the bikers won't be allowed near Parliament Hill or the National War Memorial on their motorcycles, that plans for road closures are already in the works, and they could be announced as soon as today. We'll get more details later today. So do you agree or disagree with that decision made by the Ottawa Police Service? Once again, this was the police chief's message for the organizers, would-be participants in the Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally.
I want to be clear with both organizers and participants. You will be held accountable for your actions before, during, and after the events. We continue to monitor online and open source commentary relating to all events. Threatening or intimidating behaviors will be addressed with all appropriate enforcement actions. Investigative teams, including our hate crime unit, are in place, focused on gathering evidence and laying charges where applicable. The display of symbols of hate like swastikas have and will result in charges. The targeting of any community event will result in a police and enforcement response.
Okay, so that was the interim police chief yesterday, Steve Bell. After the police board meeting, one of the organizers, an individual named Neil Sheard, posted a video on social media assuring followers that this rally is still on.
Howdy, folks. It's been a very interesting day. It has been a very interesting day. And I would suggest nobody ever say a thing on the Hill, all right? Messes with it. Anyway, long story short. Rolling Thunder, Ottawa, is still a go. More information will be coming out tomorrow, but we have been working with the city, and Rolling Thunder, Ottawa, is still a go. All right?
All right. Gotcha. Still a go. But also still on possible road closures. We could learn more information as soon as today. But by the sounds of it, the idea that 1,000 bikers are going to come into the downtown core on motorcycles, have a rally on the Hill or near the National War Memorial, lay a wreath at the cenotaph, it's with motorcycles, not on. I think the interim chief was pretty clear about that. So your reaction to it, you agree or disagree? It's, do you agree with the decision by the police? They're moving preemptively here. Phil in Orleans, what do you think, Phil? Agree or disagree?
I think at this point in time, the city probably has to err on the side of caution.
Okay.
And to go towards preventing anything from happening. And the old saying, fool me once, shame on me.
Yes.
Fool me twice, shame on me.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think the police should make sure, it doesn't matter what anybody says, it's the people of the city that decides, right?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Phil. Thank you. Fool me once. Shame on me. Fool me twice. No, shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. That one always gets me. Shame on me. All around. Both times. Mark in Charlotte Lake. Mark. Hi, Mark.
Morning, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. So the police they're moving. They're not waiting for motorcycles to head downtown. They've announced, and we'll get some more information later today about what roads will be closed and for how long. What do you think about that? What do you think about that decision?
I'd like to preface this conversation by saying I'm a first-time caller. I'm new to the area.
Okay.
Living here permanently, but I always enjoy your conversations. And I don't know if anyone chimed in yesterday about Port Dover, Ontario, a little southwest of here. Every Friday the 13th, the bikers roll into town, and it's a big event for the economy.
Okay.
Number one, the economy. They dump a lot of money into the local economy, and if I were interim Chief Bell or even the mayor, I would maybe look at blocking the traffic off for sure, but to everybody but the bikers. Allow them to come into town, because they're not going to turn Wellington Street into a drag strip and start throwing rocks through windows and causing trouble. If I owned a restaurant down there and somebody told me, well, your bottom line is going to increase by 20-25% for one day, it almost seems to the point where there's a stigma attached to bikers where I don't feel it should be. I mean, I lived downtown Port Dover, and I had to have a pass to get to my house because they blocked everybody off with the exception of the bikers.
Oh, okay.
And it was a very respectful environment.
No problems. I'm not familiar with the event, I'll be honest with you.
There's no problems. But, for the city the size of Ottawa, to have 1,000 bikes is a mere pittance to the 2,500 or 3,000 bikes that would show up in a small, Lake Erie community where, and it was just a very peaceful event, people just showing off their bikes. And the fact that they want to lay a wreath at the memorial kind of shows, their intention is to be not as disruptive as the convoy that came through and people blaring horns, which to me is deplorable. I didn't agree with that one bit.
Right.
But I firmly believe that the bikers will come in one day, do their thing, lay the wreath, have a little service, and then turn around and leave. And I think it would be good for the downtown core of Ottawa, the money that they will pour in.
All right, Mark, thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you for being a first-time caller. Hope it's not the last time you call in. 750-1310. Felix, you're on City News. Felix.
Hey Rob. I love your show, man.
Well, thank you, Felix. What do you think about the police deciding to close down roads and prevent the motorcycle rally from going to the War Memorial?
Well, after what Ottawa went through with that trucker thing, freedom, they were there to make a statement. It started off probably, in good intentions, but it went south, and the police were caught behind the 8 ball. Now, the police are ahead of the 8 ball. They're calling the shots. This is our city. We're going to do this. But that rolling thunder is for freedom. It's no different than the trucker strike or the trucker protest. And I think the police are actually doing what they have to do to make sure it doesn't go that way again, because the residents don't need it. I wouldn't want it in my front yard.
Right.
And if they really want to come down there and do a protest legitimately, why don't they do both sides of the coin? Fly in, train in, bus in, and stay at a hotel or drive in and park your car at the hotel.
Okay.
Spend the weekend there and protest during the daytime.
Well, they will be able to, they will be able to get to the War Memorial if they want to. It's just not going to be open to vehicle traffic, is from what I understand.
I don't see what the problem is. If I come down to Ottawa, that's a really nice town. I want to go walking. I'll walk down there. I'll have dinner with my family, lunch, whatever.
Yeah.
Go to the War Memorial, do your piece. Have respect. The news people probably be there to, put you
we'll
on the
be
news
there.
and everything.
Don't you worry. My wife is already asking me if I'm working this weekend. So there you go, Felix. Thank you.
Yeah, I bet you she doesn't want to go downtown shopping though this weekend.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
But I think go for it. Lock her down and make them suck it up.
Okay. Thank you, Felix. Okay.
Hey.
Yeah. Okay. This line here in Vanier. John. Good morning, John.
Hello, sir.
Hi, John. What do you think of the move from the Ottawa Police here, John?
If they fragment this group into splinter groups, they've done what they didn't want to do in the first rally with the truckers.
Okay.
They're going to congest this city for 5 days. It's going to be, and what are we talking about? We're talking about bikers that are probably vets that want to show respect to a war monument. This is a bankrupt thinkers. This city council has no brains. This is going to cost the city another $4 million in overtime. And it's all by design. This is what they want. This is what they're going to get. This is what the city of Ottawa wants. And this might affect Bell, and let's hope it does, his job. This is poor planning.
Poor planning. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's play the clip where the organizer says it could be a free-for-all, that we had, we've been in contact with the city and we had this route and we've been in, going back and forth since day one, and we had a route and we showed them the route, and now it's going to be a free-for-all. Let's just play. We don't have to play the whole thing.
Well, Weller down to Laurier.
Yeah.
Laurier, up Elgin, up and around, back down to Laurier, out to Nichols, back down to the 417. We will be out of the city. Plain and simple. Now, you've taken that little bit of control, the quasi-control that we could have had, to guide the motorcycles. And now, it's going to be a free-for-all.
Going to be a free-for-all. Okay, that's, I think one of the things the police is worried about, from the police point of view, this is speculation on my part. I think they're worried about who might tag along, okay? I mean, Neil Sherd has admitted he was part of the Freedom Convoy in one of his earlier videos. And now he's part of this Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally. So that's going to be like instant, for the police, going to be like red flag, instant turn off for a lot of people in the city as well, who endured a lot of inconvenience, hardship for some, for weeks on end. And maybe the intent is pure for many of the people who want to be part of this Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally. be a big part of a bike rally, support the veterans, go to the National War Memorial, lay a wreath. It all sounds kind of harmless in the end, but the police are worried about, I think, who might tag along. The hardcore, upside down Canadian flag, F Trudeau crowd laying on the horns, that kind of crowd. Because we've had our fill of that. We've had our fill of that. The police have had their fill of that. And they're reading the room, right? Like, not been there, done that, and done with that. So they're talking red zones, exclusionary zones, no-go zones for vehicles. What do you think about that? Patrick in Ottawa, thank you for waiting. Patrick, you're on City News.
Yeah, hey, Rob.
Hi.
So basically, we've put up with Canada Days, we've put up with, all kinds of road closures down in our downtown core for, however many years.
Yeah.
And then everybody gave both the city and the police grief over not doing anything last time around. Now you have a bunch of the same organizers, you have a bunch of the same online rhetoric that was there prior to the Freedom Convoy, and yet now everybody's angry that the police are being proactive. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, do you want to, keep the racism and keep all the bad crap out of downtown? Yes. Okay, well, this is how we do it. And,
okay.
People just can't seem to appreciate that, or we're giving too much grease to the squeaky wheel of all these people that basically want to take our beautiful city and make it, a protest every weekend. It's ridiculous, one way or the other.
All right, Patrick, thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, we got time for a few more here before we stop. Kevin in Sharbot Lake.
Well, how are you today?
We must be booming into Sharbot Lake. 2 or 3 calls already this hour from Sharbot Lake, Kevin. You got a party line up there going or something for the Rob Snow Show in Sharbot Lake?
Yeah, everything just for you. Everything just for you.
Okay. Hey, Kevin, what do you think about what the police are doing here?
I think they're kind of saying, everyone's guilty before an action's even been made. They've been in talks for a month about the route and all this stuff, and then a week before, it's kind of a slap in the face to just say, you can't do it now. If they supplied us with maybe a safe spot to park all the bikes downtown, that would maybe help things out because, where are you going to park all these bikes? Like, they're still coming for the roll of thunder, but then where are we going to park that? I think the planned route is still the best route and the best option for everybody, but if they don't leave on the planned time, then I could say it's an illegal act.
Okay.
But you can't deem things illegal.
They're prejudging it. They're prejudging it.
Yeah, a bit too much. They're not giving people their freedoms, I guess, to, say, like you said, we've had a fill of that, but clearly these people still have more to get off their chest, so to speak. They feel like they haven't been heard in that sense.
Yeah, sounds that way. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, sir. You too. You have a good one, too. 10:45. Right back with more of your calls. Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show on City News.
Welcome to the Ottawa Civic Centre as we get set for what could be an historical moment in 67's history. Musselman gets hammered by Bickle. Wrist shot deflected, scores! Brian Bickle makes it 1-0 Ottawa.
Brian Bickle, a future premier power forward in the league, the rookie. Watch what he does. Big hit, then goes to the net and tips this one home off the stick. Whitmarsh with no chance on the deflection.
Up through center, Shepard with Foy racing for the front. Nice move by Foy. Beautiful. Scores! Second effort, Matt Foy, 2-0 Ottawa.
It's the second effort for Matt Foy that gets his 60th goal, milestone goal of the year. He and Corey Locke now both in 60, the first 2 players of the season in the OHL to do it, and it's textbook Foy going to the net, and look at the second effort, a goal scorer's goal with his own rebound, and Ottawa takes a 2-0 lead.
Bickle in on Poulin, and he runs into Poulin, runs him right over center, and Benson McAllis couldn't find the handle. Loose puck, another save, and finally whistled down.
There's a penalty shot. There's a penalty shot for the 67s. Watch what happens here. Big hit. Look at Bickle.
That's what
wow,
started
he's
it.
having a great game, I tell you. Comes out in front, then there's the puck. All of a sudden loose. It hits a skate. And right there on the top, the player kneeling over. We can't get that number. He's standing up right. That's Chaumont. It's Chaumont. He's got the puck in his right hand, number 22.
And here we go, Albiani. Scores! 3-1 Ottawa. Long pass up to Rodney Ballman. He's got Dickinson. Here's Dickinson. Break scores! Lou Dickinson restores the 2-goal lead.
How fitting could it be that the Ottawa native, Lou Dickinson, could very well seal the victory for Brian Kilrea's 1,000th, the ninth pass from Rodney Bauman, and the overage Dickinson makes no mistake, going underneath the blocker above the goal pad.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed history. Brian Kilrea wins 1,000.
Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
So I guess you could say the police they're trying to learn from their past mistakes. So they're moving ahead of the actual rally moving into Ottawa. And I guess, we're going to find out later today what this is actually going to look like, but I think you can kind of picture it in your head. Parts of Wellington Street never reopened after the trucker protest anyway, so that's already done. But you can kind of picture it. You'll be patrolling traffic coming off of the bridges. For a long time, you couldn't, for example, come off the King Edward Bridge and get into the Byward Market. That was closed. That was closed off entirely. You close off Wellington at Sussex, Elgin northbound, and all the other northbound streets coming out of Centertown. And then, say, eastbound coming from the West End, maybe near the War Museum again. They were set up there before, down by the flats, and you're going to seal off the entire area. So we expect some kind of information about road closures, traffic control sometime today. But if they're really going to learn from past mistakes, which is what they say, does that mean you let the motorcycle participants, do they get to set up in a residential neighborhood somewhere, like along Queen Elizabeth Driveway? You do the geographical cure. You just kind of move the problem. Okay, they're not in the parliamentary precinct. They're in Centertown, making all kinds of noise instead. I don't know. What do you think of this idea? The police moving proactively to prevent a demonstration from happening downtown. Because that's what's going on here. Barb in Ottawa. Hi, Barb.
Hi, first-time caller.
I appreciate that, Barb. What do you think about the police move here?
I'm 100% in agreement.
Okay.
We have bikes ourselves, and we've been trying to figure out what these guys are doing. Everything's been hush-hush, and then all of a sudden they're saying, we're here for the veterans. My family has fought in World War I and World War II. Where were these guys on November 11th? A lot of these guys are supposed to be veterans. Where were they on November 11th to show support? That is the day that we show respect to those that fight for our country.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say. I'm in awe. People today, and this is just my opinion,
right,
but people today are looking for things to fight against. We are so lucky to be in this country,
right?
And being a female to be in this country, I think people don't realize how lucky we really are.
Yeah. They can still go to the War Memorial and they can still go to Parliament Hill. They just can't bring their motorcycles down there.
Then walk.
Right?
There's nothing wrong. You know what?
Yeah.
People in the Army walked miles and miles and miles. Why can't people walk and support?
Right.
And other people might join in rather than being intimidated by having motorcycles and having what has happened in the past happen again.
Right.
Walk and enjoy and talk to each other and be friendly and explain why you're really there.
Okay. All right, Barb. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, but rolling walk is not like nearly as fun as rolling thunder. Brian in Constance Bay. Brian.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Brian. Thank you.
Good.
What do you think about what the police are doing here? Their plans?
Well, I just think it's, like all the people saying our freedoms are gone. Well, this is just one thing. You can't even drive downtown now. It's like the news said, it's calling a protest. Well, it's not a protest, so that's why people think it's a protest. It's a rally. They're going to lay a wreath for the freedom that our vets fought for,
right.
And now they can't do that.
No.
It's kind of ridiculous. The truckers told us we were coming, we're going to stay.
Yeah.
They let them come and stay.
They did. Yes, they did. Yeah.
These guys are coming and they're saying we're.
Well, the police have said the police though a little later said they lied to us. They said they were going to leave on this day and they never left. So that's what the police said later. Remember, Brian?
Yeah. Well, no, I know, but they were saying all over Facebook, and they were saying we're not leaving until things change.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know if the police ever could see that on Facebook, but. It's just, we're not now every time there's something, we're not allowed to do it anymore just because of one thing that's
got out of hand. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yep. Thank you. Yeah. It's a good question because freedom to peacefully assemble is a charter right. I mean, it's a fundamental charter right. Section 2C, it's right there. Charter rights and freedoms. Happy 40th birthday. Freedom of peacefully assembly, which generally includes the right to participate in peaceful demonstrations, protests, parades, meetings, picket lines. You can demonstrate on a public street. You can camp in a public park as part of a protest. You can wear a mask during a peaceful protest. You're not protected if you take part in a riot or seriously disturb the peace, and you can't block a road or a highway or participate in unlawful activities, obviously. That's Section 2C in a nutshell. But the police are making a preemptive move here on this bike rally. I want to know what you think about it, their decision here. David in the Byward Market. David.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, David. What do you think about the police plan so far?
Well, they say they're better prepared, but to me, when you're better prepared and you learn from your mistakes, meaning that you allowed the protest to happen, but you are now prepared to control it. But you're not doing that. You're just outright banning it from the area. So, that's, sort of cut and dried.
Banning the vehicles.
Yeah, you're just not letting it happen. Instead of saying letting them in 20 at a time and then you 20 are in, now you're gone, get out, and then do the next 20 or something, you're just cutting everything off, which, that's their prerogative. But my main beef is with the city council and the mayor and the provocation in the mayor's message and also in the police chief's message. When you say words like instead of riding your bikes here and burning gasoline and what have you, you're virtue signaling in there, like you're burning gas. And climate change sort of crawls into that. And you're also saying the police chief saying no if anybody's seen painting swastikas or things like that. You're stereotyping. You're like painting these people as hoodlums before they've even done anything. Before coming into the city. What if it was like indigenous people coming in to protest water or a BLM protest to protest racism or injustice, and you just started, saying things like no public intoxication will be tolerated and things like that. That's the same kind of thing. You're almost like painting these people, and you're making people worry that they're, I just find that the provocation, if you have nothing positive to say or you think, then, just don't provoke.
They're escalating the situation. Well, I think
that's why they stayed so long last time, was because there was constant provocation and defiance.
All right, David. Thank you, David. Thank you. I just want to fit in. Let's take one more. This will be the last one. Peter in Ottawa. Peter, you're on City News. Peter.
Hi, Rob. How are
Peter.
You?
Good. Thank you, Peter. What do you think about what the police have planned here?
I agree with your previous caller there. They're not controlling the situation anymore. They're just eliminating it from downtown, right?
I got a suggestion for Rolling Thunder. If you can't make it to the War Memorial, then make it to the War Museum.
Okay.
I mean, they have a parking lot. You can probably fit a lot of bikes in there, right?
Well, yeah, they have big events there in the lot next to the War Memorial, right? So
yeah. The War Museum.
Yeah.
They can come in there, do what they have to do, get on their bikes, and away they go.
Okay.
And if the police would listen to these guys and block off the streets where they're coming in and going out, like he said, they can control how many's coming in and how many's going out.
All right. Okay.
You know?
All right.
It's a simple solution, but I guess like a mayor and everybody else in the city, their solution to everything is close it down.
Close it down. Well, that's what they've done. And I suspect it's probably the popular decision. It's not popular with the callers here. But it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds over the course of the week and what we hear from the organizers, because at least the one organizer who's very outspoken and is kind of taken on this spokesperson role, Mr. Sheard, has said, it's on. We're coming anyway. This is the Rob Snow Show. That's the Talkback Hour. We may pick up on this again tomorrow. Popular topic today. This is City News.
Hey, I'm Ash Ravens. I'm a singer-songwriter in Ottawa, Canada. I'm performing on Encore Ottawa 3. It's been great, especially for me, who's a completely newcomer to the Ottawa music industry and music scene. I've been welcomed with open arms. I'm a member of OMIC and I'm loving it so far. This kind of concert series promotes music and gives us newcomers or even like new bands a big chance to showcase their talents and share their music with the world. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for me to perform at the beautiful Shenkman Arts Center. I'm supported by Rogers TV, obviously, and I've been checking out the previous Encore 1 and 2 videos on Rogers channel, 22 channel, as well as YouTube, and I've been blown away. Frankly, it's so beautiful. It's world class, to be honest. And the lighting and the sound, everything was mind blowing for me. And so I'm really glad that I'm here, enjoying this very moment, talking to you guys, going to be performing on stage for Rogers TV and for OMIC. Yeah, it's a big opportunity for me.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 26. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 12 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The East End extension of Confederation Line is on track for a 2024 opening, but there are supply chain issues affecting the West End extension. Here's City News reporter Chris Curries with the details.
The rails are being placed from Blair with much more work to go, but the mayor says there's an estimated opening date sometime in 2024.
We learned a long time ago, if we put in a specific date in a month and we miss it by one day, we're better to say 2024, and 2024 goes to December 31st.
But the West End, which was originally scheduled for November 2025, is unclear.
At this time, we're still analyzing the schedule.
That's Executive Chris Lafleur in charge of construction. He says supply chain issues have thrown a major wrench into their plans, along with a lack of labor and some geotechnical issues. Reaction from Alan Hubley, West End councillor and chair of the Transit Commission, who says he's not concerned yet. In the East End, Chris Curry's City News.
City News time, 11:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
For Ottawa, the Valley, Smith Falls today, cloudy, windy, turning colder. A chance of some showers. A west wind to about 25 kilometers per hour. Higher gusts. The high today, 14 degrees. Tonight, rain and snow showers mixed overnight. The low near 1. For today, the high, 14.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, it's 12 degrees. Like many residents of the Ottawa downtown core, one member of Ottawa Police Service Board says he is concerned about another protest coming into the city scheduled for this weekend. Councillor representing Carleton-March, El-Chantiry, is the chair of the Police Services Board.
It's a democratic country. You know, you have the right to protest, but you don't have the right to intimidate people. You have no right to shut their business down. You have no right to yell at them just because they're wearing masks and you're not. So there's a lot of things really we have to, you know, as a citizen of the city or of this country, we have to stand up.
Now, Chantiry's advice to residents who are going to the downtown core this weekend: be prepared for traffic disruptions because of the motorcycle Rolling Thunder convoy that's scheduled to come through, and also make sure you obey the law. Now, Mayor Jim Watson feels people taking part in this Rolling Thunder protest planned for the weekend could put that energy to better use, sending money to Ukraine for their freedom and not complain about theirs in Canada. Watson says he is confident the police do have a good plan in place.
I've met a number of times with Chief Bell and his command team, as well as our City of Ottawa officials. I have confidence in the plan that they put together, as well as the personnel that they have called upon to enforce the law in the City of Ottawa. People have the right to demonstrate, but they don't have the right to take over and hold hostage the city and the people of Ottawa.
Now, the mayor is urging those who do take part this weekend to follow the law or face the consequences. City News Time, 11:04. Defense Minister Anita Anand and officials from about 40 other countries met to discuss ways to provide additional military aid to Ukraine.
Ukrainian officials say they need more weapons and fast. Germany announced it had cleared the way for the delivery of self-propelled anti-aircraft guns. Meanwhile, 2 months into the conflict, U.S. Secretary of State Lloyd Austin said more help is on the way.
We're here to help Ukraine win the fight against Russia's unjust invasion.
As he convened a meeting with defense officials from dozens of countries at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, Austin sought to reassure Kyiv.
You should know that all of us have your back, and that's why we're here today, to strengthen the arsenal of Ukrainian democracy.
I'm Jennifer King.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Returns with my friend on the right side of things. Syndicated columnist, former speechwriter for Stephen Harper, Michael Taube is back with us this morning here on City News. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. I'm thinking if I had $44 billion, I would not buy Twitter. I do a lot of different stuff with it. Like disappear, never to be heard from again.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, Elon Musk he has a lot more than $44 billion. It's like closer to $300 billion. But he's buying Twitter. What do you think about that? He's buying Twitter. What do you think about? He's done it, basically. So.
Yeah, well, he has. The deal still has to be approved, and so there is still a little bit of a tiny window. But generally speaking, based on the fact that he's put so much effort into this and made such a big pronouncement of it and ensured that he gets the proper amount of funding, I think it's safe to say it's going to go through unless something really, really weird happens. So let's assume that he's bought Twitter, which he has. In terms of the money that he spent, I find what you said amusing. If I had $44 billion, I wouldn't do it. I was thinking of the Bare Naked Lady song with $1 million. But regardless, the end result is that ultimately, if you have that sort of money, if you wish to spend it in the free society, as we know, it's up to you if you wish to do it. And he obviously sees benefit for it, and I assume he has different plans for it as well, which will, probably come to light as time goes along. But the most important thing is, and it's true, Musk himself has about He's roughly worth about $260 to $265 billion. His personal net worth is only actually about $2.95 billion, which is an enormous amount of money, more than most of us will ever see in many lifetimes. But, obviously he's attained the proper financing for it. The reason for it is I think he sees it as an important vehicle to promote different things, including the preservation of free speech, which is really, I think, in many ways, how this all sort of started off in the first place. He had a very a small percentage in the grand scheme of things, but he was the largest personal investor in Twitter before he purchased it with about 9.2%. He had finally accrued. He was looking to go up to roughly maybe about, from what I understand, 14 to 15%, but the Twitter, the previous ownership, or the soon-to-be ex-ownership, put sort of a poison pill theory in place where he couldn't go above 15%, and that finally got him to the point of, that's fine, then I'll just take it over. But what he's going to basically do is he's going to ensure that free speech remains a strong part of Twitter going forward. And I think that's been one of the weakest things about it, is we've seen...
Yeah. Why do you say that, Michael? Why do you say that?
Because free speech is not really respected any longer in Twitter. I really don't think it is. And the way we see it is that cancel culture, which is a problem that's affecting many different parts of the world, including, obviously, social media. We see that, the basic tenets of free speech, which you and I know, is basically you have to give acceptance to the things that you agree with and disagree with. It can't be a one-way street. It can't be a one-sided discussion, or else you don't have free speech. If you believe in free speech with even a small amount of limitations, well, that's not true free speech. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to be a free speech absolutist, but you have to sort of understand the mechanics behind it and understand how important it is to preserve in a free society like the one we live in Canada, and why it's so important to have a proper amount of discussion. If you don't have free speech, it limits the amount of intellectual discourse you have. It limits the amount of normal two-way conversations about things, the ability to agree to disagree on issues, which we could do, and we've been able to do for many generations. But within the last few years, due to a lot of things that have been going on, obviously, deplatforming to Black Lives Matter to radical movements that have occurred, Me Too, a variety of things. Some of them have obviously beneficial items to it and others don't. The whole cornucopia has unfortunately created an element where free speech is just not respected in places like Twitter any longer. My hope is that Musk will be able to not only promote that, but he's also said that he's going to go after things that have hurt the social media platform as well, including bots, which have been around for quite some time, and they obviously move conversation in a different way. You see, bots, you can obviously see they're set up in a particular fashion. Sometimes they have no face or image with them or emoji with them. They just either follow the same pattern or they're created for the same goal, which is to move a conversation in a particular area, including bad areas, which unfortunately then can motivate others. It creates a false narrative and false information as well. The elimination of bots, which Musk, at least based on his tweets from yesterday, has suggested that he's going to do.
Yeah. So let's go through what he wants to do. Let's go through what he wants to do. We can do this kind of bullet point for him.
Sure.
Because I think he's right on with a lot of this stuff. The edit button. Come on. It's a no-brainer.
But it's there.
You need an edit button, right?
But it's there. You have to pay for it. That's the difference.
Well, you shouldn't have to pay for it.
No, I agree with you. It probably won't.
Because what happens is somebody will have a point to make on Twitter, but there's a spelling mistake or a grammatical error or whatever, and the whole conversation gets sidelined, if you could even call it a conversation. It all devolves into insults about, well, you don't even know how to spell, or you don't, it's so silly. So edit button. Bots and spam. They have to figure out what to do with bots and spam.
Absolutely.
And that goes to authenticating each individual user. So, how can you do that? Well, for some services that I use online, I have to go through third-party authentication. Yep. And, you have to put in your phone number and they text you a code. if you want to access the service. So, it's...
Even Parler, for example, even if people don't like it, they actually have an authentication system. So there's no reason Twitter can't do it.
Like, I'm not a prolific tweeter, and I've kind of given up on the whole, getting into social media, heated exchanges on social media, because I've kind of said, what's the point of this anymore?
There isn't much point. I agree.
And so, but at least my account is me, right? It's me.
Yeah.
And, the last thing I want to do is engage with XYZ1234_ who has 2 followers and signed up 3 days ago just to, make fun of me or something. So they need to do.
You have to resist temptation to get involved, which is what I do. I'm sure you do it, and many others do it.
So they need to authenticate users. I'm a big fan of that. So if he could somehow figure out a way to do that. Now, this making the algorithm open source, this is technological stuff that it's beyond me. I don't know what that would mean. So, all steps in the right direction, don't you think?
I believe so. I mean, I think this should all be looked as a positive thing, but unfortunately, and we're already seeing it mostly from people on the left, but we'll see, we'll see how things go as time goes along. There are already people who are leaving Twitter, threatening to leave Twitter, and that's the wrong way to handle it.
Okay.
And, to sum it up very quickly, Musk put out a tweet the other day that he hopes that his critics actually stay on Twitter, because that's how free speech survives and thrives, by having difference of opinion. He's 100% right, and they should listen to it.
Okay. Do you believe Trump when he says, I'm never coming back to Twitter?
No.
No, neither do I. I think it'd be too...
That's not a personal thing about him one way or the other. He can't at this stage, because as he's trying to, save face and hope that his attempt at social media platform, True Social, doesn't collapse at the seams. It's coming pretty close. I mean, he has to take a strong stance in front of the thing that his name is behind and that he's trying to create. But really, when you think about it, Rob, there's nothing wrong with having multiple accounts. There's nothing wrong with him spearheading True Social, if it survives, and we'll see what happens, and having another Twitter account where he just basically duplicates a message over and over again. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because that's what most of us do with social media anyway. So, no, I think at some point he will go back.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll see what happens with it. It's going to be something to see. Okay, here in Ottawa. Boy, this was a busy hour for us, the last hour. But the police don't want anything that looks like Freedom Convoy 2.0. So there have been plans for a Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally. 1,000, the estimate being about 1,000 bikers coming into the downtown core are going to rally at the National War Memorial. So now the Ottawa Police Service has said, no, I don't think so. And the plans are in the works for a major traffic plan. Similar to what we saw in the latter days of the Freedom Convoy. Blocking off-ramps, blocking roads, no-go zones, this kind of thing. What's your reaction to that, shutting down an event before it can even go? What do you think about that?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's the whole issue right there. You can't always assume that everything that happens is going to be the same as a problem you faced previously, which means that every rally that comes through is not going to be the next Freedom Convoy, say 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. You can put whatever number you want behind it. You can't naturally assume that. Plus, as well, whenever you draw attention to something, you make it a bigger issue than it actually should be. I think that basically, at least my reading of the Rolling Thunder motorcycle rally, is that they were planning to go through the downtown. I think they had basically a route set up based on news reports I've read, both through Ottawa media and otherwise, and they were going to leave. But now, based on the fact that there is this pushback because of the sensitivity of some city municipal services and obviously others based on what they saw before. Because of that, unfortunately, I think what has happened is, and I'm just paraphrasing, like the motorcycle rallies basically just said it's going to be sort of a free-for-all where they're going to go wherever they want. And that actually makes the problem worse. If it had been an organized effort where they go through, make their comments, drive in and out, and leave, which I think, and I'm just guessing, was the original intention of this rally, it would have been fine. Yeah, but still, it would have disrupted some people. The fact that people felt that they were, and I'm just, paraphrasing and quoting, terrorized by this. The Freedom Convoy obviously did disrupt things in the city of Ottawa. There's no doubt of that. But it wasn't an act of terror. If people actually think that is terrorism, domestic or otherwise, they don't understand what it is. They don't understand the definition of the word, and they've not learned about what international terrorism is or what 9/11 was really about. They forgot everything or forgotten everything. And again, I really don't think this was going to be that big a deal. I can understand why, obviously, the police are concerned about it. And that's fine. They put out people and they just make sure that it went peacefully. But again, the Freedom Convoy was not this massive outrage that people make it up to be. Okay. It was mostly an event where freedom was promoted and people were safe by and large. It was run in an effective manner. It just went on for too long and caused a lot of commotion. And when you have disruptions to both the economy, moving goods and services back and forth, or just the downtown core being difficult to go through, that's when the problem erupts. But again, we've been through the Freedom Convoy. We don't have to go through it. There were many, many ways that it could have been handled a lot better, but that was incumbent on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government to do, and they failed miserably at it. And here, in this case, my sense is that, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't think this rally was that big a deal. I thought it was going to be a very quick in and out thing. I didn't think it was going to really have a major effect in Ottawa at all. I know that the person who's running it has been a person who has supported a movement against COVID-19 restrictions. But then again, lots of normal thinking people feel that way. Yeah. I don't think it was that big a deal, and I think that they've mishandled this already before the event has even occurred.
Let's see later today. We're supposed to get more word on road closures, traffic disruptions this weekend, and the organizer says we're coming anyway. So we'll see what happens with it. Okay.
Yep.
So I've read, at least 3 opinion pieces in the media about Pierre Poilievre and saying he's Trump. He's Canada's Trump. They're comparing. It's like a default position for many in the media. One in particular that was published, BurnabyNow.com. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the person. I'm sure they're a lovely person. But it's clearly an opinion piece. It's an opinion piece. Now, Michael is a columnist. Michael's a columnist. Okay, he's paid to express his opinion. He's here on the radio with me expressing his opinion. You can agree or disagree. That's the beauty of it, isn't it, Michael? Isn't that the beauty of it, right? I'm not a news reporter. I'm also paid to give an opinion. I'm a broadcaster, talk radio host. The person who wrote this, what is clearly an opinion piece, is a political reporter. Yeah. Chief political reporter.
Yes.
That's not the role of political reporter, is to offer your opinion. At least it didn't used to be.
Nope.
Quote, Poilievre is doubling down on playing off voters who are either seething with rage or deeply unhappy with the state of affairs in their own lives. He is offering a different way forward, as simplistic or unworkable as it may be. Does that sound like he's reporting the news to you?
No, of course not. But that's obvious. But no, look,
Come on. Okay. What is that?
I know Keith Baldry, and obviously he wrote it from a personal point of view. And, again, his personal point of view is fine. We live in a free society. He can think whatever he wants. At the same time, you're right. The role of, regardless of being a person who holds a very senior role or is just a basic political reporter, you're supposed to report the news as is and keep your opinion basically to yourself. And you're quite right. People like you and I who are paid to express our opinions, our role is completely different than Keith Baldry's role or other reporters as well. And for that reason, when something like this comes out, again, he has the right to do it, but he then basically blurs the line of distinction between what political reporting, or news reporting if you'd like, is, versus opinions and editorials, which is basically our side of the fence. And for that reason, it just makes it more difficult. But the bigger issue at play and I think you're absolutely right, is that now they're starting to make commentary about Pierre Poilievre being the second coming of Donald Trump. And again, it's the whole thing with derangement syndrome. You just throw in the name of the leader and you put it in there. And we're doing it again with Trump, as we've done it with Stephen Harper and various others in the past. And it gets to be a bit silly, but I can sum it up very quickly. Pierre Poilievre is not Donald Trump, much the same way that Doug Ford, the Ontario Premier, was not Donald Trump, much the same way that Stephen Harper, who has been actually called, as of late, after his book came out right now, was called something Trump-like, is not Donald Trump. And I can add many more people. Trump, whether you love him or hate him, is his own unique person. He marches to the beat of his own drummer. And he is obviously a separate person, a separate foe. There are people who like his style. There are people who emulate his style. But you can't assume that every single person who has some outside-the-box ideas or appeals to certain elements of the society where populism is sort of Curry's favor, or it has a populist type of tone for the policies that you promote, it doesn't mean it's the second coming of Donald Trump, third coming, fourth coming, whatever. There's no correlation, and it's tiresome to listen to. But this is the line, and I'm sure you know it, Rob, this is the line that the political left is now going to play. And if they think they can actually attach him to Mr. Trump, who obviously in Canada has a very, there's a very different opinion of Donald Trump here than there is in the United States, and parts of it anyway. For that reason, they think that they can lessen the appeal or weaken Pierre Poilievre's attempt to become the conservative leader. It's an interesting tactic, but it's not going to work. It's basically a fruitless one at best, because Poilievre doesn't meet the standards of what Donald Trump is, and the two of them together do not represent the same type of populist / conservative / right-leaning ideology that everyone wants to feel they do. There's no link, there's no association, there's no correlation, so stop.
Just stop. Yeah, but Derek Sloan might be the next coming of Donald Trump. Yeah, so much so.
Well,
so much so.
I don't know about
so
that
much
either,
so.
okay.
Issuing news releases. Hey, we have a new strategic advisor. Roger Stone is going to be our strategic advisor. Now, Roger Stone. If you've never seen, there's a Netflix documentary, Get Me Roger Stone. If you've never seen that, it's really good. It's really good, actually. And, Roger Stone makes no apologies. He's, dirty trickster, going back to Watergate, helped Nixon. He has a Nixon tattoo on his back, okay?
That's correct, yep.
Right.
He does.
And he says in that documentary, I don't care if I'm famous or infamous. It doesn't matter to me. If people, as long as people are talking about me. But seriously, he's a bad dude. Holy cow. Dirty trickster doesn't do it justice. And he was convicted of 7 felonies. So I'm not really sure if it's the kind of thing. The only reason he's not in prison right now is because Trump pardoned him. I don't think that's the kind of thing you really want to be like, this is our latest hire.
Well, I agree. Although, look, Roger Stone, though, has played a role in American politics for decades.
Yeah.
That's so you're basing it, and I assume the way Sloan is doing it, he's trying to link A, to the experience of Stone, and love him or hate him, he has a ton of it. And B, Roger Stone's name obviously means a lot more in the grand scheme of things, especially internationally, than Derek Sloan does, where Derek Sloan is a complete anomaly on the international stage and is not, quite frankly, whether he likes it or not, a household name on the domestic stage either. So he's trying to link with people he believes can help him who, well, again, to go back to the previous discussion, outside the box type thinking. How can Roger Stone sell Derek Sloan, who basically was turfed out of the federal conservative caucus and has basically been floundering around ever since? How can he actually help rebuild his career or restage his career? Now, in reality, can it be done? No. But Roger Stone is also a hired gun. So for the right price, he will join you and he will try to help you as best he can. He's helped very high-profile politicians. He's also helped some, lesser-known lights, shall we say. Yeah. And in some cases, he was a little bit more successful with them. In other cases, nothing much really occurred. But for Stone, his point of view is, yes, he has ideological grounds, and he certainly believes in certain things. But again, a lot of it goes where the money is. And right now, based on, as you pointed out, the fact that he basically, saved himself from jail because of a presidential pardon from former U.S. President Donald Trump, which is true, Roger Stone doesn't have much money left because he has spent an enormous amount to try to protect him.
You're working, you're taking gigs with the Ontario Party. Wow. Okay. Okay.
But if he wants to, it's up to him. And look, if he feels that look, whatever they offered him, clearly he was happy with it. We don't actually, I read the piece from the National Post. We don't specifically know all the logistics of the relationship, but if he wants to align with Sloan, he will. If he can help him, I'm sure Sloan will obviously accept whatever advice that Roger Stone gives him. But is it a good person to link up to in this day and age? Absolutely not.
All right. Great to hear from you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Speak next week. Yep. Syndicated columnist and my friend on the right side of things. That's Michael Taube. Back after the news. The New Democrats, ahead of the Ontario election, are out with their platform. We'll go over some of the highlights with the leader of the party, Andrea Horwath, next on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Never seem to understand in time what's going on outside of my mind. All the pointless things we did, just a recipe for being broke as shit. I wish I could spend countless hours wasting away with $1 a pair of flowers. Oh, he really has time for that. Think itself for the aftermath. You can't always go back to the battle days. It's your fingers and the size of glaze. If you look back and don't see the battle days, you still must be living in them. People now, and the youthful kings, have they held the power? Or are they on that quick decline, still holding on to the long line? You can't always go back to the battle days. It's your fingers and the size of a glaze. If you look back and don't see the battle days, you still must be living it on. Turn your head and look behind. He's waiting patient for your decline. Turn your head and look behind. He's waiting patient. And tell myself I can always check out backslide wine. Russian mouth, dirty clothes and darkened eyes, and nose running out of time. You can't always go back to the battle days. It's your fingers and the size of glaze. If you look back and don't see the battle days, you still must be living it on. You can't always go back to the battle days. It's your fingers and the size of glaze. If you look back and don't see the battle days, you still must be living it on.
Local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 26th. Good morning. I'm Alex Gouge. Right now in Ottawa, it's 13 and mostly cloudy, and in Smiths Falls, it's 12. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson admits there will be challenges for the city this weekend. Watson says the Rolling Thunder protest scheduled to hit the city on Friday doesn't seem to have a single focus. He is also urging those taking part to have a look at what's happening in Ukraine and maybe contribute to those people rather than complain about freedoms in Canada. Ontario is reporting 1,730 people in hospital with COVID-19 today and 219 in intensive care. That's up from 1,455 people in hospital on Monday, with no change in the number of COVID-19 patients in ICUs. The province recorded 13 new deaths from COVID-19 today, and one more that the government says occurred more than a month ago was added to the total count. The UN Refugee Agency is launching a new appeal for funds for the crisis sparked by the war in Ukraine. It's part of a new $1.85 billion regional response plan aimed at supporting refugees. The agency is now estimating up to 8.3 million people will have to get out of Ukraine by the end of this year. The response plan would help refugees who have fled to several countries, including Hungary, Poland, and Romania. City News Time, 11:34. I'm Alex Gouge. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The election is June 2nd. In the province of Ontario, June 2nd is Election Day. And ahead of the election campaign and the drop of the writ and even the Ontario budget that comes out later this week, the Ontario New Democrats have released their platform. And Andrea Horwath is the leader of Ontario's New Democrats, joins me this morning here on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Welcome back. Nice to hear from
Thank you.
Where have we
Always
reached
my
you
pleasure.
today? Where have we reached you?
I'm actually on the 401 East towards Peterborough.
Oh, headed toward Peterborough. Okay. All right. Excellent. So I thought I would begin with the two big expenses for any provincial government are healthcare and education. Healthcare first, education second. What would a New Democrat government do for the healthcare system?
Well, we know one of the things that's shown us very clearly by COVID is how broken many of our systems are, including healthcare. And we've made some commitments in our platform to start fixing our healthcare system, hiring the staff that we need, whether that's in long-term care, home care, hospitals. People don't get health care without folks at the bedside, and that's exactly what we're intending on doing. 30,000 nurses, 10,000 PSWs. Make sure that those jobs are decent jobs. Make sure that we get rid of Doug Ford's low-wage policies that are chasing people out of those professions, and have a plan to recruit, retain, and return workers who have walked away because of the disrespect they felt from Doug Ford.
Okay. So you're talking about Bill 124 there, Andrea?
Bill 124,
yep.
yes.
Okay.
Bill 124. Right. Absolutely. And we can have respectful, good faith bargaining with workers in Ontario, and that's what every government should be doing.
Okay, so the pledge is hire 10,000 PSWs and pay them more, right?
Yeah,
30,
in fact,
okay.
Yeah,
yep.
So Doug Ford gave the $3 an hour. We are committing to at least another $2, so for a permanent $5 an hour increase. But we know it's more than just wages, right? It's making sure that there's a proper mix of workers in home and community care, in long-term care, making sure that there's enough staffing on the job, making sure people can have full-time work and not have to go to 3 different long-term care homes just to, cobble together a living.
Okay. And again, 30,000 nurses, speeding up the recognition of nursing credentials for internationally trained nurses. I was told the other day by a nurse at the Ottawa hospital, it could take years. It takes years to get approvals, all the approvals in place if you were trained in another country to become a nurse.
Yeah, it's really a slow process. There aren't any very many pathways, and so we actually put some legislation forward about a month or so ago because I had one of my MPPs working on this very issue. And she's come up with some through consultation with existing healthcare workers, with folks at the colleges, and particularly with internationally trained professionals, internationally certified professionals, what some of the barriers are. And so it can be addressed, but you have to make the effort. And not only are we going to make the effort, but we're going to be accountable for that effort and have a report annually to ensure that we are peeling back that onion. Okay.
You say you would begin working immediately on universal pharmacare for Ontario, but your counterpart at the federal level, Mr. Singh, has already signed this supply agreement, supply and confidence agreement with the Trudeau Liberals, and it's contingent on the federal Liberals doing something, showing some movement on pharmacare. So if the feds are going to do it, why do you need to do it? Why would the province need to do it?
Well, I don't know where to start with that. I can remember when my son was born, I thought I'd get affordable child care from a federal Liberal government, and boy, we finally got it, and he's 30 now. So I don't want to have Ontarians have to rely on another level of government. You know, this was in our platform last time around, and we're committed to making sure that people get the prescription drugs that they need without having to shell out of their pocket. It's better for their health. It'll provide some financial relief. It'll cost them less. And so we're going to get started, and we're going to start developing our formulary and starting to put things in place. And if it turns out that the federal government's formulary is happening, we can do that in tandem, then for sure, I'm not going to make Ontarians wait. And when we get to the Council of Federation meetings, I'm going to be a big champion for getting the government federally to move on this. Unlike Doug Ford, who threw cold water on it the whole time he was the premier of this province.
Okay. What would you do about long-term care and improved conditions in long-term care? Certainly, if there was something that proved to be inadequate, it was Ontario's long-term care system during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, and I should point out, your colleague, the Liberal leader, Stephen Del Duca, is out there today. He's going to be with my colleague Sam LaPratte here later this afternoon. Stephen Del Duca says the Liberals would end for-profit delivery of long-term care if there's a Liberal government. So I'd like you to comment on that. The Liberals are saying we get the for-profit sector out of long-term care. Comment on that and what you would do for long-term care.
Well, I want to start by saying they had 15 years to do exactly that, and they failed Ontarians. And we saw just how badly long-term care was off when COVID hit. When Ford got elected, he certainly continued the privatization of long-term care, just as the Liberals had done. But it got worse under Ford, and then the pandemic hit, and I think the problems in long-term care were laid bare for the rest of the province. You might know I've been in Ottawa. Even I've been in many places in Ontario over the last several years talking about long-term care. It's a terrible situation. And people paid a terrible price for what the Liberals refused to do when they were in office and what Doug Ford made worse. And so we have commitments not only around long-term care, but we've heard loudly and clearly from seniors and from their families that they want better home care as well. They want to be able to stay in their homes as long as possible. And so not only do we get the profits out of long-term care, but also out of home care and expand our home care system. The home care sector has been telling the Ford government for some time now that they're in an absolute crisis. I heard a story just this morning about a person who's in the hospital who can't leave the hospital, has been there for 5 weeks because they can't even get 1 hour of home care. Now, it's about $1,500 approximately to keep somebody in a hospital bed per day. An hour of home care is a lot less expensive than that,
sure.
And it's where people deserve to be. Where they're familiar, where they're comfortable. It helps with their healing. It helps with their mental state. I mean, it's just the most humane thing to do. So yes, long-term care is going to be fixed with an NDP government, and so is home care.
Okay. So that's a nice synopsis of what is you're pitching to voters on the healthcare, long-term care side. What about education? What would you do about public education in Ontario?
Our public education system has really taken a big hit under the Ford Conservatives. Our kids were, of course, during COVID not protected. They were not, given the smaller class sizes that they deserve. They were out of the classrooms longer than anyone else, any other children in most jurisdictions around the world. And so that's really selling our families and our kids short. And as a result, we know that it has some serious impacts on our kids. In some case, learning loss. In some case, real mental health and anxiety problems. The loss of that socialization with their friends really had an impact. And shockingly, Doug Ford has been cutting in education even in the midst of the pandemic. So we'll be making sure that we're staffing up in education, providing those education workers, those teachers and EAs and others to support our kids and get them back, where they should be when it comes to their education. We also don't believe in the government's plan to continue with online learning. I think COVID very clearly showed that the online learning piece was not favored by kids, was not favored by families, and it's really just I think it's really just a tool for Doug Ford to find ways to privatize our education center, our system, and hand it over to his buddies. And that's the last thing we need in Ontario. We need to provide quality public education.
All right. You have an education plan that says you're going to hire 20,000 new employees. You have bold ambitions for nursing, PSWs, long-term care, pharmacare, dental care, mental health care. A lot of promises in there, but at the same time, you're promising a 4-year tax freeze for low and middle income families. So how are you going to pay for all these promises?
Well, I'm glad you raised that, because I can guarantee your middle class or middle income and lower income listeners will not see a tax increase. Why? Because they can't afford it. The price of everything is going up. People, are worried about being able to afford the roof over their head these days. The last thing they need is a government that's going to be, increasing their taxes. However, we all know that there are many multimillionaires in our province that can afford to pay a little more. And in fact, there are lots of companies who made windfall profits during COVID-19, and they can afford to pay their fair share as well. And so we're going to be asking them to do exactly that. And I think it's important to note that the things that we're talking about in our platform will actually make life more affordable for people as well. So if you don't have to shell out for a dentist appointment, if you don't have to pay directly to have your kids' fillings paid, filled by the dentist, if you don't have to shell out for your prescription drugs, your asthma medication every month, if you're not having to use your credit card, but rather can use your OHIP card for mental health counseling and therapy, then that's going to give you some financial relief.
All right. Thank you. Safe travels on the 401. Nice to hear from you. Yeah, bye-bye. Thanks. Bye-bye. We'll probably talk after the budget is out. Andrea Horwath is the leader of Ontario's New Democrats Hamilton Centre, the MPP for Hamilton Centre. When we come back, the Canada Research Chair in Digital Communication for the Public Interest from Royal Roads University will speak with Associate Professor Jaigris Hodson on Elon Musk taking over Twitter. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Riding requires attention and focus. No distractions, no moment of unawareness, because one brief moment can cost a lifetime of other moments. Everyone deserves to arrive home.
The Maritime provinces are home to some of the oldest settlements in Canadian history. But did you know that one of the first was actually started by black settlers? Take a minute to learn about the rise and untimely fall of Africville. Black people have lived in Nova Scotia since before the founding of Halifax in 1749, but it wasn't until after the American Revolution in the late 1700s and early 1800s that large groups of black settlers began to arrive in the province, many of whom were former slaves promised freedom and land in Nova Scotia. What they encountered when they arrived, however, was racist treatment by their white neighbors and government officials. This pushed many black people to build homes on the outskirts of town instead. But despite the area receiving little support from government officials and lacking necessities like functioning sewage systems, access to clean water, and proper garbage disposals, the tight-knit community persevered, and so Africville was born. For more than 150 years, the small community grew, expanding from just a few homes to a population of over 400 people. Everything changed, however, in 1964 when plans for a new bridge and the idea of urban renewal prompted the municipality to set its sights on Africville's land. Instead of investing in the community, officials approved a relocation program that promised free job training and employment assistance to help residents through relocation. But the reality wasn't so kind. Residents had their belongings moved in city dump trucks, and homes were demolished immediately after their owners left. Of the 400-plus people living in Africville, only 14 residents held clear legal titles to their land, so the rest were only given $500 with the promise of more social aid in the future. Not much else was actually done to support Africville and its residents until 2001, when a United Nations report called for reparations to be paid to the community. In 2010, Halifax Mayor Peter Kelly apologized for the atrocities against Africville as part of a $4.5 million compensation deal. In 2021, Councillor Lindell Smith put forward a 7-part motion to plan for the future of Africville alongside local organizations and the descendants of former residents. Today, there's a public park and museum where Africville once stood to teach visitors about the history of the land and its community. If you've never heard of Africville, you're not alone. The tragic story of this small black community in Nova Scotia is not as well known as it should be.
Voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Elon Musk, closer to buying Twitter. Board approval. The board has accepted the $44 billion offer. Still needs shareholder approval. But Elon Musk, richest person in the world, closer to full control over this popular social media platform. Let's get into it now. Associate Professor of Interdisciplinary Studies at Royal Roads University. Canada Research Chair, Digital Communication for the Public Interest. Jaigris Hodson joins me this morning. Good morning, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
Really nice to hear from you. What is your reaction to the Twitter takeover by Elon Musk?
Oh, thank you for asking. So, yeah, at first I was actually surprised that it went through. You know, he talks a big game quite a bit, but to get the financing to do this is quite another matter. So I was surprised that was approved, but here we are. And I'm sort of just skeptical about this takeover. It may or may not change anything. But what he's claiming to do, which is open up Twitter completely and, reject moderation, I don't think is a great idea for the platform.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Well, every platform, when it has a certain population size, needs moderation to keep sort of the people in the middle interested in being on there, to keep it a good experience, right? No moderation at all means an increase in bad behavior, like technology-facilitated violence, like online harassment and bullying, and that particularly impacts the people of color, Indigenous people, and women who, if they experience too much of that without help, will just leave the platform, and that's not good news if you want to grow and make a profit with this sort of thing.
Okay. It seems as though he's saying Twitter is the modern day public square. What do you think about that? Is it the modern day public square?
No, I think that's a profound misunderstanding of Twitter.
Oh, really?
First of all, there's not as many people on Twitter as we think. Twitter is not representative of the general population. And secondly, studies have also shown that the people who engage on Twitter most is like the 10% at either end of the spectrum. So the most passionate 10% on the left and the most passionate 10% on the right. Yeah. And then throw in some academics and some journalists in there in the middle. Those are the people who are using Twitter. But for the rest of the world, Twitter is like a non-starter. Like people are on, older people are still on Facebook, younger people are on TikTok and YouTube, and Twitter for most people isn't a big part of their life. So to say that this is central to the public sphere or free speech in some way is a profound misunderstanding of the importance of the platform.
Okay, some people are still in the public square, I suspect.
Yeah, maybe even that.
Right. I don't think it's going to affect me in any way, shape, or form. I don't even like Twitter. If I didn't have to be there because I'm in the news business, I wouldn't even be there anymore. But you don't really believe this. He almost makes it sound like altruistic, like it's the public square, and I have to save it on behalf of a healthy democracy. You sound, Professor, skeptical of that.
Yeah, even if you accept his thesis that Twitter is very important to the public square, the idea that one person, a billionaire, could buy up a platform like this, take it private, and have that be good for freedom of speech, right? One single non-public owner. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody would say, oh, yeah, that's a really great way to make sure that everything on Twitter is fair all the time, right? It's just too much control in the hands of one person, regardless what your intentions are. But that's assuming, as I said, that we accept the premise that Twitter is so essential to the public sphere, and I'm not sure that's even true.
Okay. When he says, I want the algorithms to be open source, in the most basic language possible, what does that mean, and is that in the public interest? That does sound like something that would be in the public interest.
It does sound like it is, doesn't it? And the thing is, like, we do want more transparency in algorithms. So basically an algorithm is an equation that runs to determine what content gets shown to whom. So what he's talking about is the decisions that get made, often behind the scenes and often automatically, about, what you see. So do you see this promoted post or this one? Do you see tweets coming from me or somebody else? He wants those to be open source. But the thing that most people don't realize is that an open source algorithm to most people, like you and I, for example, doesn't mean anything. Like, we would look at it, it's a line of code. Yeah. And so for us, like, it's not going to tell me anything about what Twitter is showing me.
So you don't think there's going to be this light bulb moment like where, aha! The academics of the woke left have been running the social media platforms all along, and here's the proof.
Yeah, that's what people think is going to happen, right? But most people who can understand the algorithm are the same people who are already currently programming it and probably have a good idea what's going on, even if they aren't currently programming it. So it's not going to be as open as we think, right? It's open if you have the capacity. It's like, reading a medical journal, right? If you're not a doctor, you probably don't understand most of the words in there. So yes, it's good that it's open, but it's not going to affect most people the way we think it is. And in fact, again, if you go back and you look at the literature, it's generally not what people think is going on, which is they think that the left is oppressing the extreme right. In fact, there's probably more boosting of right-wing voices because Twitter's really worried about the perception of the left, stifling the right. So that stuff's probably not even going on. And if it were, most of us could not read the algorithm to understand it. But those people that could, yes, it probably is good to have it open. It also, though, means that bad actors who have some programming skills could game those algorithms, right? So if you make them open, there could be the effect that is opposite of intended. So people, they use that knowledge in a bad way. So Elon's got a lot of issues on his hands if he takes on this platform and needs to moderate it. And it seems like he doesn't really have a plan for how that might go down.
No wonder Jack Dorsey left it behind. So who
Right,
needs the aggravation? Who would want the aggravation? Okay, Professor, thank you.
Thank you so
really
much.
interesting conversation. Professor Jaigris Hodson from Royal Roads University. Canada Research Chair, Digital Communication for the Public Interest. This has been Radio Communication in the Public Interest, the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays 9 to noon on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response